The courtroom was silent, the air thick with anticipation. It was the kind of silence that makes you feel like something big is about to happen. On one side sat Elon Musk, the tech mogul who had built some of the most groundbreaking companies in history, Tesla, SpaceX, and Neuralink. His reputation was on the line. On the other side, a team of sharp lawyers from an opposing corporation, determined to bring him down. The case seemed straightforward at first. A major competitor accused Musk of deliberately misleading investors and consumers about the capabilities of Tesla's self-driving cars. The allegations were serious. If proven true, Musk could lose billions. But to most people in the room, this seemed like just another corporate battle, destined to be settled in the typical way, with a few back-and-forth arguments and a quick resolution. However, no one expected what happened next. The judge, an experienced, no-nonsense figure who had seen it all, looked over at Musk with a skeptical smile. He had heard the reports, read the filings, and listened to the opening statements. Musk, as always, remained calm, his poker face never revealing a hint of concern. But the judge couldn't help but chuckle. "Mr. Musk," the judge said, glancing down at his notes with a slight smirk, "this case seems like a bit of a stretch, don't you think? I mean, you're not exactly known for playing by the rules, are you?" The courtroom broke into murmurs. Musk's reputation for being unconventional, for pushing boundaries, sometimes beyond legal limits, was well known. His unorthodox approach to business had gotten him into trouble before, but it had also made him a billionaire. So, the judge's comment wasn't entirely unexpected. But Musk's response was. Instead of getting defensive, instead of trying to prove the judge wrong, he simply smiled. It wasn't a cocky grin. It wasn't smugness. It was the kind of smile that suggested he knew something everyone else didn't. "Your Honor," Musk began, his voice calm and collected, "you might be right. I might not always play by the rules. But if there's one thing I know, it's that sometimes the rules need to be broken, especially when they no longer make sense." There was a long pause. The judge looked up, his expression softening slightly. There was something in Musk's words that struck a chord with him, though he wasn't sure what it was yet. The courtroom went completely still. Everyone was waiting for Musk to explain further, but he didn't. Instead, he leaned back in his chair, his eyes locked onto the judge's. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough? Musk's voice suddenly echoed in his own mind as he briefly remembered the countless times he had spoken to his fans, to the millions who followed his every move. The people who believed in him, who admired his determination and unwavering vision. Maybe this was one of those moments when he could show them how far he was willing to go, how far he could take them on this journey. But back in the courtroom, all eyes were still on him. The judge cleared his throat and motioned for Musk to continue, intrigued by his unexpected confidence. "You see," Musk continued, his voice more focused now, "this case isn't about whether or not Tesla's self-driving cars are perfect. It's about whether or not we're willing to push the limits of what's possible, to challenge the system that has kept innovation stagnant for far too long." A murmur swept through the room. It was clear now that this wasn't going to be just another corporate lawsuit. Musk wasn't going to let it play out like that. He was going to make this personal, at least in the way he approached it. The judge raised an eyebrow. "So, what you're saying, Mr. Musk, is that you're willing to gamble everything for the sake of innovation?" "That's exactly what I'm saying, Your Honor." For a moment, the judge paused. He wasn't sure what to think. Musk was known for his boldness, but this was different. There was something in the way Musk spoke that made him seem invincible. As though he truly believed in his mission, no matter the odds. It wasn't just about the money. It wasn't just about Tesla or SpaceX. It was something bigger, something Musk had built his entire career on, a belief that the world could, and should, be better, even if it meant breaking the rules. The judge leaned forward, his tone now more serious. "Mr. Musk, I've seen many defendants come and go, but I've never seen someone approach a trial with such, dare I say it, enthusiasm for breaking the law. Are you really telling me that you're willing to sacrifice everything just to prove a point? Musk didn't flinch. I'm not here to prove a point, Your Honor. I'm here to show that sometimes you have to break the rules to change the world. If we don't challenge the system, we'll never progress. And progress is what we need. It's what drives me every day. It's what drives everyone at Tesla and SpaceX. The courtroom was still. The tension was palpable. No one had ever seen Musk like this before. He wasn't just a CEO of some company anymore, he was a man on a mission, a crusader for change. And that's when it hit the judge. He realized that this wasn't going to be a normal case. Musk wasn't just defending himself, he was redefining the entire concept of what it meant to be an innovator in the modern world. He wasn't here to win or lose, he was here to make a statement. The judge sat back in his chair, momentarily stunned by Musk's conviction. He wasn't sure where this would go, but one thing was clear, this case was about more than just a lawsuit. It was about the future. You may proceed, Mr. Musk, the judge finally said, his voice quieter now, as if he had been momentarily humbled by the force of Musk's argument. And with that, the battle began. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough? Elon Musk was not your typical CEO. Unlike the usual corporate figures, who played it safe with carefully crafted public personas, Musk was someone who defied convention at every turn. He didn't just take risks, he thrived on them. But as much as people knew him for his larger-than-life ambition, there was far more to Musk than the world saw on the surface. To understand what made Musk so unflinching, you had to look at his past, at the experiences that shaped him, the challenges that hardened him, and the vision that drove him forward, no matter what. Musk was born in Pretoria, South Africa, in 1971, the son of a Canadian model and a South African electromechanical engineer. His childhood was far from perfect. He was an introverted kid, always lost in books, with a deep fascination for technology and innovation. At the age of 10, Musk taught himself computer programming. By 12, he had built and sold a simple video game, Blaster, to a local magazine for $500. This was just the beginning of a lifelong obsession with creation, and it set the stage for everything that would follow. But it wasn't just his intellect that shaped him. Musk's relationship with his father was complicated. His father, Elon Musk, was an intelligent but controlling figure. Elon's mother, May Musk, was a resilient woman who made sure her children were supported emotionally, but the home life was tense. The struggles at home fueled Musk's drive to prove himself. There was a fire in him, a desire to break free from his circumstances and carve out a future for himself, one that was entirely his own. When he was 17, Musk left South Africa and moved to Canada, eventually making his way to the United States to attend the University of Pennsylvania. He had big plans. He wanted to change the world, and he was willing to take big risks to do so. His early ventures were anything but ordinary. After finishing his degree, Musk co-founded Zip2, an online city guide software company. It was eventually sold for nearly $300 million, and Musk took his share. But instead of taking a break or playing it safe, Musk poured that money into his next big idea, X.com, which would later become PayPal. PayPal revolutionized online payments and changed the way the world did business. When eBay bought PayPal for $1.5 billion in stock, Musk walked away with $165 million. At this point, most people would have retired or invested in safer ventures. Not Musk. His mind was already focused on the next frontier. He took the PayPal money and invested it all into his vision of space exploration with SpaceX, and electric vehicles with Tesla. To most, these were moonshot ideas. Space exploration was costly and risky, and electric cars were seen as impractical at the time. But Musk wasn't most people. He was relentless. He took risks others would shy away from, and sometimes, he paid a steep price for his ambition. Tesla was on the brink of collapse multiple times before it finally took off, and SpaceX faced a string of failed rocket launches before it succeeded in sending a spacecraft into orbit. But every failure only made Musk more determined. He never doubted his vision. He never gave up on his dream of changing the world. In fact, it was his resilience that set him apart from other moguls. Musk had been knocked down, humiliated, and ridiculed more times than he could count. Yet each time, he picked himself up, learned from his mistakes, and forged ahead. He was driven not by the fear of failure, but by the excitement of possibility. And it wasn't just the world of business where Musk stood out. He was a master of public perception, using social media to build a personal brand that both captivated and confused people. He was beloved by his followers for his eccentric, often controversial tweets, and his willingness to dive into everything from artificial intelligence to sustainable energy. But critics were quick to point out his erratic behavior and his tendency to say things that seemed impulsive or out of touch. Yet, for all the controversy, there was no denying Musk's brilliance. He had disrupted industries that had been stagnant for decades. He had made electric cars cool, space travel possible for private companies, and renewable energy a viable option for the future. There were moments when it felt like Musk wasn't just a businessman, he was a force of nature. But there was one thing that everyone, from critics to fans, could agree on: Musk was a man who would never be afraid to push the limits. His philosophy was simple: break the rules when the rules are holding back progress. And it was this mentality that had carried him through the toughest moments of his career, and it was the same mentality that would carry him through the battle in the courtroom. As he sat in the witness chair, facing the judge who had just made his skeptical remark, Musk's mind wasn't on the immediate challenge in front of him. He wasn't thinking about winning or losing. Instead, he was focused on something larger. This lawsuit, the accusations, the media circus, it was just another obstacle. An obstacle that had to be overcome for the greater good. But there was something more at stake here, something that no one in that courtroom understood yet. Musk was playing a bigger game. This case was about more than just clearing his name, it was about sending a message. It was about showing the world that if you believed in your vision, if you refused to back down in the face of adversity, you could change everything. And Musk was about to prove that no matter what the odds, no matter how many times people doubted him, he would always find a way to win. The days leading up to the next hearing were filled with a frenzy of preparation. Elon Musk, as always, was unbothered by the growing pressure. While his team of lawyers worked tirelessly around the clock to prepare their defense, Musk spent his time immersed in the very thing that had made him a global icon: innovation. At SpaceX's headquarters in Hawthorne, California, the hum of activity was palpable. Engineers were working on the next Falcon Heavy launch, while others were locked in deep discussion about the future of the Mars mission. Meanwhile, at Tesla, production lines were running at full speed, as the company pushed out new vehicles designed to change the way people thought about electric cars. Musk wasn't a man who liked to sit idle. His mind was constantly at work, moving from one project to the next, always thinking about what was possible. As he watched the progress at SpaceX and Tesla, he couldn't help but feel a familiar rush. This was where he was meant to be. This was the real world, full of challenges and opportunities. But he couldn't ignore the case either. It was a distraction, yes, but it was one he needed to deal with. The stakes were higher than ever. The court case was not just about Tesla or self-driving cars, it was about his vision. If he lost, it would be a massive blow to everything he had worked for. It would prove that the old guard, the conventional business world, could still win. And Musk wasn't about to let that happen. The morning of the next hearing arrived, and the courtroom was packed. The tension was so thick you could almost cut it with a knife. People were eager to see how Musk would handle the mounting pressure. There was an air of skepticism lingering in the room, especially after his bold words the day before. Would he live up to the promises he made? Or would this just be another case of an eccentric billionaire trying to defy the odds? As Musk entered the courtroom, his eyes quickly scanned the room. His legal team was in place, and the opposing counsel sat across from him, their expressions serious. But Musk's focus was on the judge, who, after his surprising reaction the previous day, was now even more curious about what Musk had up his sleeve. The judge, Judge Daniels, was no stranger to high-profile cases. He had seen corporate giants go head-to-head in his courtroom before, and he'd dealt with his fair share of unconventional personalities. But there was something about Musk that intrigued him. The man wasn't just fighting for a company, he was fighting for a vision, one that could change the world. Mr. Musk, Judge Daniels began, his voice low, but authoritative. Yesterday you spoke about innovation, about pushing boundaries. Today, I'd like to hear more about what that means in the context of this case. What is it that you want this court to understand about Tesla's self-driving technology? Musk sat forward, his eyes focused. His hands rested lightly on the table in front of him. He wasn't nervous, he never was in these moments. Instead, there was a calm intensity that radiated from him. Your Honor, Musk said, his voice steady and clear, self-driving cars are the future. Tesla's mission has always been about pushing the boundaries of what's possible. We've already shown that electric vehicles can be practical, affordable, and even more desirable than their gasoline counterparts. Now, we're working on making the roads safer, reducing accidents, and improving transportation overall through autonomous driving. A murmur rippled through the courtroom. Musk's words were not just technical, they carried the weight of his entire philosophy, a philosophy that had turned Tesla into one of the most valuable companies in the world. It wasn't just about profits for Musk, it was about his unwavering belief in the power of technology to solve the world's greatest challenges. The problem is, Your Honor, Musk continued, that progress is often met with skepticism. People are afraid of the unknown. But that fear doesn't stop us from moving forward. Tesla's technology is safe. We've made sure of it. And, yes, there have been mistakes along the way, but we've learned from them. Just like with every new technology, the first steps are always the hardest. But they're necessary. Judge Daniels leaned back in his chair, his gaze never leaving Musk. There was a palpable silence in the room as everyone waited for his response. The judge had heard many CEOs speak, but Musk's conviction was unlike anything he had encountered before. It wasn't just business jargon, it was raw passion for what he believed in. And yet, you stand accused of misleading investors and consumers, Judge Daniels said, his tone challenging. You're being blamed for setting unrealistic expectations, for promoting a technology that some say is far from being ready for mass adoption. How do you respond to those concerns? Musk took a deep breath, then exhaled slowly. I'm not perfect, Your Honor. No one is. But I'm committed to transparency. Tesla has always been upfront about where we are with autonomous driving technology. We've shared data. We've conducted extensive testing. And yes, there have been challenges. But we're solving them. The truth is, self-driving cars are a challenge to the entire automotive industry. But that doesn't mean they're not worth pursuing. The courtroom was dead silent. The judge sat there, his expression unreadable, as he absorbed Musk's words. There was no denying that Musk's vision was compelling. But the case wasn't about the philosophy of innovation, it was about facts, and the legal arguments surrounding them. Mr. Musk, Judge Daniels said after a long pause, I can see that you believe in your company and your technology. But this case is about something more than just belief. It's about accountability. It's about whether your company followed the law and upheld its responsibilities to investors and consumers. I'm afraid that's where your passion might not be enough. Musk's face remained calm, his eyes steady. He wasn't deterred. Your Honor, I know the law. And I know innovation. The law is important, but so is the future. Tesla is committed to both. The judge's eyes narrowed. He wasn't sure where this was going, but it was becoming clear that Musk was going to take this case to the edge. As the proceedings continued, it was evident that the case was taking on a life of its own. The tension between Musk's bold ideals and the harsh realities of the legal system created an electrifying atmosphere. The courtroom, filled with observers, could feel that something big was unfolding. This wasn't just a lawsuit, it was a battle for the future. Musk's conviction was unwavering, and his words had planted a seed in the judge's mind. But there was still a long way to go before the case could be decided. And while the courtroom drama unfolded, Musk knew one thing for certain: he wasn't just fighting to defend himself. He was fighting for the future of humanity. The days following Musk's powerful statements in court were filled with mixed emotions. On one hand, he felt more certain than ever that he was on the right path. On the other, the looming legal challenge was a constant reminder that even the greatest minds could be tested in ways they hadn't anticipated. After the courtroom hearing, the public's interest in the case grew exponentially. Social media buzzed with debate, some rallying behind Musk's vision of the future, others casting doubt on the practicality of Tesla's self-driving cars. Some critics even suggested that Musk's cavalier attitude toward the law could be his undoing. Yet, amid all the chatter, one thing was clear: this wasn't just about a legal battle. It was about the philosophical clash between tradition and progress. Musk wasn't oblivious to the growing pressure. He knew the outcome of this case would affect not only Tesla's future but the very future of autonomous technology. And while his mind was focused on the bigger picture, he also knew that every move he made in the courtroom could shift the tide one way or another. The next court session arrived, and Musk stepped into the courtroom with his usual calm resolve. But this time, something felt different. There was a sense of growing tension in the air, and it was clear that both sides had prepared for a deeper confrontation. The courtroom buzzed with anticipation as Musk entered, his team behind him. His adversaries, a group of lawyers who specialized in corporate litigation, wore expressions that were tight with focus. They were prepared for war. Judge Daniels sat at the bench, his face expressionless. He had seen Musk's arguments in the previous session, and while he had been impressed by the entrepreneur's boldness and conviction, the judge was also pragmatic. The law wasn't swayed by charisma, it was built on evidence, facts, and reason. And that was where things were about to get complicated. "Mr. Musk," Judge Daniels said, breaking the silence. "I've given considerable thought to your words. But this case is not about whether we believe in your vision or your drive. It's about whether or not you and your company adhere to the laws that govern public safety and business practices. The stakes are high, and the evidence you present today may very well tip the scales." Musk's gaze didn't waver. His tone remained steady and confident as he addressed the judge, his words measured but firm. "Your Honor, I understand the gravity of this case. But I also understand the magnitude of what we're working on here at Tesla. We're not just building cars, we're building a future where roads are safer, where traffic fatalities are minimized, and where transportation becomes smarter. Tesla's mission has always been about more than profits, it's about advancing technology to improve the world." He paused for a moment, his eyes scanning the room. "But I also recognize that with progress comes responsibility. We've always strived to meet the highest standards, and where we've fallen short, we've worked tirelessly to correct it." There was a ripple of murmurs in the courtroom. Musk's words weren't just rhetoric, they spoke to a deeper truth that resonated with the audience. But as his legal team prepared to present their case, it became clear that this wasn't just going to be about Musk's philosophy or his vision. It was going to be a battle over hard facts. The opposition's lawyers had brought out new evidence, some of it damning, some of it pointing toward serious gaps in Tesla's self-driving technology. As the opposition took their turn, they painted a different picture. They presented data showing multiple instances where Tesla's autopilot system had failed, where accidents occurred due to technological malfunctions. Some of the footage was troubling: drivers who had relied too heavily on Tesla's autopilot, only to end up in serious accidents. The question the opposition posed was simple but profound: how much trust could be placed in technology that had already caused harm? One of the opposition's lawyers, a woman with sharp features and an even sharper intellect, addressed the court. "Your Honor, we are not here to undermine innovation. We are here to point out that innovation must be held to the same standards as anything else in this society. If self-driving cars are to become a reality, they must be proven to be safe beyond a reasonable doubt. And right now, Tesla has failed to provide that assurance. Investors, consumers, and even the public deserve better. They deserve transparency, they deserve safety. Musk's legal team immediately countered the allegations, pointing out that no technology was perfect from the outset and that Tesla had taken major strides to improve its autopilot system over time. The company had implemented updates, made safety improvements, and provided regular software upgrades to fix any bugs. Musk's team argued that the evolution of technology was never without its bumps along the way, but they insisted Tesla was doing more than anyone else to make it work. But despite the well-argued defense, the damage had been done. The images of accidents, some fatal, hung in the air like a dark cloud. The judge looked at Musk, his expression unreadable. For the first time in this case, Musk felt a pang of doubt. This wasn't a simple misunderstanding. These were lives affected, real-world consequences that had to be addressed. The break between sessions provided Musk with a moment to step away and clear his mind. He walked out of the courtroom, his thoughts heavy. It was one of the rare occasions where he allowed himself to feel the weight of the situation. He had always pushed forward, blind to the doubts that others had about his ideas. But now, even he couldn't ignore the fact that people had been hurt, and that it was his company's technology that had failed them. But then, something clicked. A deep breath filled his lungs as he remembered why he was here. This wasn't just about a courtroom battle or defending Tesla's reputation, it was about proving that the future was worth fighting for, no matter how messy the road ahead might be. He turned to his lead attorney, a trusted advisor who had been with him through thick and thin. "We need to change the narrative," Musk said. "This isn't about whether we've made mistakes. This is about where we go from here. How do we make it right, and how do we continue to move forward? I need to show the judge and the jury that we're not backing down, not from the challenge and not from the future." His attorney gave him a long, knowing look. "You've always been a visionary, Elon. It's what sets you apart. But now it's time to show them how that vision can win, by doing what no one else can." Musk nodded. The time for talking was over. It was time for action. Elon Musk knew that the battle in the courtroom had reached a critical juncture. The public opinion was split. Some saw him as a visionary who was pushing the world toward a brighter future, while others saw him as an arrogant risk-taker, playing fast and loose with safety in the name of progress. Now, more than ever, Musk had to demonstrate that Tesla's mission wasn't just about futuristic technology, it was about real-world solutions to the problems society faced. As the next hearing approached, Musk had spent every waking moment reviewing Tesla's approach to self-driving cars. He dove into the data, the reports, the feedback from both consumers and engineers, trying to find the missing piece, the one thing that would tilt the case in Tesla's favor. He had built his empire on taking bold risks, but now he faced a risk that was different, a risk that could cost him everything. On the morning of the next session, Musk entered the courtroom with his legal team, the same calm but determined look in his eyes. He had made up his mind, it was time to play the long game. The evidence that had been presented against Tesla's autopilot system was undeniable. There were accidents. There were failures. But Musk knew that what mattered was how he responded. It wasn't just about defending the company, it was about demonstrating that Tesla's mission was more than just the accidents. It was about the future, about improving the world, and making transportation safer for everyone. As he sat down in the witness stand, the room fell silent. Judge Daniels glanced at Musk, his expression carefully neutral. "Mr. Musk," the judge began, "we've seen the data, we've seen the accidents. But today, I'd like to hear from you. I want to understand your vision, what do you see in the future, and how does Tesla fit into that picture?" Musk took a deep breath. The pressure of the moment wasn't lost on him, but he knew this was his chance to change the narrative. He wasn't here just to defend himself or Tesla, he was here to change the way people thought about technology, safety, and progress. Your Honor, Musk began, his voice steady, I understand the concerns. I understand that people are afraid. When new technology is introduced, it's often met with fear. And there's no denying that Tesla's autopilot system isn't perfect. We've had accidents, and we've had setbacks. But I want to be clear, we've never claimed that our technology is infallible. We've always been transparent about where we are, and we've worked tirelessly to improve. He paused, letting his words sink in. The question isn't whether we've made mistakes, the question is, can we improve the system? Can we make it safer? Can we reduce the number of traffic fatalities on our roads? The answer to all of those questions is yes. And that's what Tesla is committed to, making a difference, making the roads safer, and making self-driving technology the standard for the future. There was a pause as Judge Daniels considered Musk's words. The courtroom was still, the weight of the moment hanging in the air. Musk wasn't just speaking to the judge anymore, he was speaking to the world. He was speaking to anyone who had ever doubted Tesla's ability to deliver on its promises. But what about the people who've been hurt? One of the opposing lawyers asked, her voice cutting through the tension. What about the families of the victims? What about the lives lost? Musk's expression remained unchanged, though his eyes darkened for a moment. I am deeply sorry for every life lost, and I take full responsibility for Tesla's role in those accidents, he said, his voice quieter but still firm. Every life is important. And that's why we're working as hard as we can to make sure it never happens again. But we can't let fear stop us from moving forward. The technology will get better. And if we give up now, the road to a safer, smarter future for everyone will be lost. There was a murmur in the courtroom. Musk's words had a weight to them. They weren't just a defense, they were a call to action. He wasn't just trying to convince the judge, he was trying to convince everyone in the room, everyone watching, that the future was worth fighting for. Later that day, Musk's legal team presented a powerful new piece of evidence, data from Tesla's recent upgrades to its autopilot system. They showed how Tesla's technology had already prevented hundreds of potential accidents, using real-time data to adjust the driving experience and avoid dangerous situations. They demonstrated how the system had learned and evolved with every mile driven, making it smarter with each update. But the most striking part of their defense came from the engineers who spoke on behalf of Tesla. They explained how Tesla's AI system was designed not just to drive the car, but to understand the world around it. They showed how Tesla had incorporated lessons learned from every incident, using those lessons to enhance the system's ability to avoid danger. The improvements were continuous, they emphasized. Tesla was not just building a car, it was building a safer future. This shift in focus, the emphasis on learning, growing, and improving, seemed to change the tone of the court. Judge Daniels sat forward in his seat, his gaze fixed on the engineers. He could see the passion in their eyes. These weren't just tech enthusiasts talking about their creation, they were engineers who believed in what they were doing. They believed in the power of technology to save lives. But even as Musk's team made their case, the opposition wasn't backing down. They hammered on the unpredictability of self-driving technology, pointing out that despite Tesla's promises, there were still too many unknowns. They asked Musk how he could justify rolling out such a complex and potentially dangerous technology to the public without the proper safeguards in place. As the day wore on, it became clear that this case wasn't just about technology, it was about trust. It was about whether the public could trust Tesla to deliver on its promises and whether the legal system could trust Musk to be held accountable. And as the final arguments loomed, it was impossible to say which way the case would go. But Musk wasn't just relying on his legal team to win this case. He knew the importance of the moment, and he knew the only way to truly win was to prove that Tesla was more than just a company, it was a movement. A movement that, for all its flaws, was determined to push forward. To make the world a safer, better place. He stood up from the witness stand, facing the judge one last time. Your Honor, Musk said, his voice resolute. I know this is a difficult decision. But I believe that we're on the verge of something transformative. The road ahead will be filled with challenges, and yes, there will be more setbacks. But I can promise you this, Tesla is committed to the future. And we will make it happen. The courtroom was still as Judge Daniels deliberated on the case. The air felt thick, heavy with anticipation. Musk sat quietly, his eyes focused on the judge, though his mind was racing. For the first time in a long while, he felt the weight of uncertainty pressing against him. The hours had passed, and now the courtroom was filled with an electric tension, each moment stretching longer than the last. The defense had been solid. The testimony from Tesla's engineers had been compelling, and Musk's own words had carried the conviction of someone who truly believed in the cause. Yet, despite all of this, there was no guarantee. The case was far from decided. The opposition had struck hard with their evidence, their arguments sharp and pointed. They had laid bare the flaws in Tesla's self-driving technology, pointing out real-world risks that could not be ignored. There were moments in the trial when even Musk had found himself grappling with the uncomfortable truths about the limitations of his company's product. And then there was the judge. Judge Daniels was known for his level-headedness, his ability to see both sides of a case and weigh them carefully before making a decision. Yet Musk couldn't shake the feeling that the judge was more concerned about the implications of this trial than anything else. This wasn't just about a single lawsuit. This was about the future of autonomous vehicles, the future of transportation itself. The sound of the gavel echoed through the room, and everyone in the courtroom fell silent. Judge Daniels had returned to the bench. His stern face was unreadable, his eyes scanning the room before finally landing on Musk. "I've heard the arguments," Judge Daniels began, his voice measured and calm. "This case has raised important questions, about safety, about responsibility, and about the role of innovation in society. I must consider not only the facts of the case but the broader implications of the technology at hand." Musk held his breath. The moment had arrived. "I have reviewed the evidence presented by both sides, and I must say that while I am deeply concerned about the risks associated with Tesla's autopilot technology, I also understand the greater potential. Mr. Musk, you have presented a compelling argument about the future of transportation. And while I do not take these matters lightly, I believe that the case before us is about something more than just Tesla's self-driving cars." There was a pause. The tension in the room thickened. What did he mean? "Therefore," Judge Daniels continued, "I am ordering a temporary suspension of the trial to allow for further investigation into Tesla's practices. However, I am also setting a date for a public forum to discuss the future of autonomous vehicles. The court will invite experts from both sides, along with representatives from Tesla, to present solutions for the issues raised in this case. This will not be a trial in the traditional sense. It will be a platform for collaboration." Musk blinked, surprised. A public forum? This wasn't a ruling in his favor, at least, not entirely. But it wasn't a full defeat either. The judge's decision was, in many ways, unprecedented. The idea of a public forum was a game-changer. It meant that the debate over Tesla's technology, and autonomous vehicles as a whole, would no longer be confined to the courtroom. It would be brought into the public eye, where the conversation could include experts, government regulators, and everyday citizens. Musk knew this could be an opportunity to shift the conversation once again. Instead of focusing on Tesla's failures, the public forum would allow him to highlight the innovations Tesla was pushing forward. He could demonstrate how Tesla was working tirelessly to address the flaws in its autopilot system. He could show that, despite the setbacks, Tesla was committed to improving the technology and ensuring its safety. And yet, even as he considered the possibilities, Musk couldn't help but feel a nagging sense of doubt. A public forum meant scrutiny, public scrutiny. There would be no hiding behind the walls of the courtroom. He would have to stand in front of the world and face every challenge, every accusation, and every question head-on. Later that evening, Musk sat alone in his office at Tesla's headquarters, staring out of the window. The city light sparkled in the distance, but his mind was miles away. The public forum was an unexpected twist, one that threw everything into uncertainty. But it also presented an opportunity. An opportunity to shift the conversation, to make people see Tesla's vision not just as a product, but as a movement that would define the future of transportation. He picked up his phone and dialed his lead attorney. The line rang twice before the voice on the other end picked up. "Musk," his attorney said, "I have to admit, I didn't see this coming. A public forum? This is uncharted territory. We'll have to rethink our strategy entirely." Musk leaned back in his chair, his fingers tapping on the desk. "We've been thinking in terms of defense for too long. It's time to go on the offensive. The forum will be our chance to show the world the bigger picture. It's not just about the accidents or the failures. It's about the future." There was a brief silence on the other end. Then his attorney spoke again. "You're right, Elon. But this will require an entirely new approach. We'll need to prepare for questions from experts, regulators, and even the public. You'll need to convince people that the risks are worth taking." Musk's voice became resolute. "I'm ready. We're going to show them why this is worth it. We're going to prove that the future is worth fighting for." The public forum was scheduled to take place in 2 weeks, but the days leading up to it were filled with a frenzy of preparation. Musk worked tirelessly with his team, reviewing every piece of evidence, every bit of data, and refining his arguments. He knew this was his chance to turn the tide, to make people see Tesla not as a company on trial but as a force for change. As the day of the public forum arrived, Musk stood before a crowd of reporters, experts, and spectators. The pressure was immense, but Musk had never been one to shy away from a challenge. He stepped up to the podium, his eyes scanning the room, and began to speak. "Ladies and gentlemen," Musk began, "we are on the cusp of something that will change the world. And yes, there will be challenges. There will be setbacks. But we cannot let those setbacks stop us from pushing forward. The future of transportation is one where we do not have to rely on human error. A future where lives are saved because technology has made our roads safer. A future where the impossible becomes reality." The crowd listened intently as Musk outlined Tesla's vision, a world where self-driving cars weren't just a luxury, but a necessity. He talked about the technology's potential to save lives, reduce traffic accidents, and improve the quality of life for millions of people. It wasn't just a pitch, it was a statement. A statement that this was more than just about business. It was about changing the world. As Musk spoke, there was a shift in the room. The tension that had once hung in the air began to dissipate. He wasn't just defending his company anymore, he was defending a vision. And for the first time in the entire trial, the room seemed to be listening. Elon Musk felt a shift in the room as the crowd hung on his every word. The public forum was unlike anything he had ever faced before. This wasn't a traditional courtroom, there were no walls built by lawyers and judges, only the raw, unfiltered gaze of the public. Here, it wasn't about defending Tesla's actions, it was about defending the very idea of innovation, the kind of transformative change that Musk had spent his career pursuing. He could see the skeptical faces in the crowd. They weren't just tech experts, but people who had been directly affected by the failures of self-driving technology. Victims of accidents, family members of those who had lost their lives on the road, journalists with their doubts carefully masked behind their pens. Musk knew he had to convince them all that Tesla wasn't just another corporation out to profit from cutting corners. He had to make them understand that the world needed this technology, no matter how difficult the journey might be. He took a deep breath before continuing, his voice steady as he addressed the crowd. "Every single one of you has a story," Musk said, his tone sincere. "And I understand that. I understand the fears and the losses that many of you have experienced. But let's not pretend this is just about accidents. The real question is, how do we move forward from here? How do we create a future where lives are saved, where traffic accidents are reduced, where roads are safer for everyone?" He paused, letting the weight of his words settle in. "Tesla has made mistakes, yes. But we have never stopped trying to improve. The technology will get better. We've learned from every setback, every failure, every tragedy. And we are committed to making sure that no one else suffers because of it. There was a silence in the room, followed by a few murmurs. Musk could sense the skepticism beginning to shift. He had to be careful here. He wasn't asking for sympathy, he was asking for understanding. One of the experts in the front row, a well-known automotive safety analyst, stood up and addressed Musk. "Mr. Musk, you're talking about the future, but what about the present? What about the lives that have already been lost?" Musk met the man's gaze with a somber expression. "I take full responsibility for what has happened. Every life is precious, and every loss is a tragedy. But we cannot let fear stop us from trying to make the world better. We can't just pull back from innovation because it's hard or because it's uncomfortable. We have to push through those difficulties, learn from them, and come out the other side stronger. Tesla is committed to that." The expert didn't immediately respond. Instead, he sat back down, seemingly considering Musk's words. It was a small victory, but Musk knew better than to get too hopeful. There was still a long road ahead. As the forum progressed, it became clear that Musk's strategy was working. He wasn't just talking about Tesla's progress, he was giving the audience a glimpse into the larger vision he had for the future. He spoke of a world where autonomous vehicles weren't just a luxury or a niche technology, but a ubiquitous part of everyday life. A world where roads were safer, where lives were saved, where the need for human-driven vehicles diminished as AI learned to navigate the complexities of traffic better than any human driver ever could. His words were powerful, but it wasn't just the rhetoric. It was the vision, the audacity of the dream, that seemed to start winning over the crowd. He wasn't asking for forgiveness. He was asking for support. He was asking them to join him on this journey, to be part of something bigger than themselves. There were moments when the crowd seemed to waver, when Musk's critics tried to push back, pointing to the flaws and failures. But Musk remained calm, always coming back to the same point: the future was worth the fight. And every setback, every criticism, was simply part of the process. Later that evening, as the forum drew to a close, Musk found himself standing outside the conference hall, looking up at the starry sky. The weight of the day's events hung on him, but for the first time in a while, he felt a flicker of optimism. The world was starting to listen. It wasn't all the way there yet, but it was a step in the right direction. His phone buzzed in his pocket, and he pulled it out, glancing at the message. It was from his lead attorney. "Elon, we just received some breaking news. The judge is considering an unexpected ruling based on today's events. He's calling for a new round of negotiations between Tesla and the regulators. This could change everything." Musk's heart skipped a beat. The unexpected twist had arrived. The next morning, the news broke. Judge Daniels had announced that, following the public forum, he was calling for a new round of negotiations between Tesla and government regulators. It was an unprecedented move. Instead of moving forward with the trial as planned, the court had decided to open the door for dialogue between Tesla and the agencies responsible for regulating autonomous vehicles. The public response was mixed. Some saw it as a victory for Musk and Tesla, an acknowledgement that the company had made significant progress and was taking responsibility for the challenges ahead. Others were more skeptical, questioning whether this was merely a delay tactic, a way for Musk to buy time while the pressure of the lawsuit continued to mount. But for Musk, it didn't matter how the public responded. What mattered was that the conversation had shifted. The focus was no longer just on the failures. It was on the future. And the future, he knew, was something that couldn't be stopped by a single setback, no matter how public or painful. In the days that followed, negotiations between Tesla and the regulators began in earnest. It wasn't easy. The regulators had their own concerns: public safety, the ethics of self-driving technology, and the need for robust safeguards before autonomous vehicles could be allowed on the roads in large numbers. Musk and his team worked tirelessly to address these concerns, proposing new solutions, new safety features, and a roadmap for how Tesla could work with the government to ensure that the technology was safe for the public. It was a difficult and often contentious process, but Musk believed in the end result. He wasn't just fighting for Tesla's survival, he was fighting for the future. And in that fight, he knew that setbacks were inevitable. But setbacks were just the price of progress. Days turned into weeks, and the negotiations continued. Musk's mind was constantly on the task at hand, but in the quiet moments, when the pressure of the trial wasn't hanging over him, he couldn't help but reflect on the journey that had brought him here. From the early days of Tesla, when no one believed in his vision, to this very moment, standing on the precipice of something world-changing. Tesla's future was uncertain, but the possibility was still alive. Musk had made it this far by embracing the unknown, by accepting that failure was just another step toward success. He wasn't done yet. Not by a long shot. The negotiations were taking a toll on Elon Musk. Every day brought new challenges, and every new development seemed to raise more questions than answers. The regulatory bodies were thorough, questioning everything Tesla had done, and every idea Musk put forward was met with a blend of skepticism and cautious optimism. They were, after all, playing the long game. They were planning for the future, but their approach was meticulous, and it didn't always align with Musk's sense of urgency. Sitting in a conference room with his legal team, engineers, and some of Tesla's top executives, Musk felt the weight of the world pressing on his shoulders. The atmosphere in the room was tense. He could see the exhaustion in their eyes, people who had been working day and night for weeks, trying to craft solutions to satisfy the regulators without losing sight of Tesla's vision for the future. "All right, let's be clear," Musk said, his voice cutting through the tension. "We can't just keep adding safety features that slow down our cars. We need to push forward. The future of transportation won't wait for us to catch up." His words had always been bold, but today, they felt particularly charged. The court case had given him a glimpse of what was at stake, not just for Tesla, but for the entire industry. If the regulators couldn't be convinced of Tesla's commitment to safety and innovation, then the door for other companies to take the lead in autonomous vehicles could be closed for good. One of the engineers raised his hand hesitantly. "Elon, we've added all the extra safeguards, but each one is a compromise on the technology's performance. The system slows down. It isn't as responsive as we'd like. If we keep adding more features, it may be safer, but it won't be the kind of leap forward that we're envisioning." Musk leaned back in his chair, running a hand through his hair. The engineer was right. Every innovation, every improvement in safety, came with a cost. But Musk knew there was a way to make it work. "We can't stop here," Musk said. "I know it's not perfect. But if we're going to get past this, we need to prove we can be both innovative and responsible. We need to show that Tesla can lead the way, not just in technology, but in safety, too." It was a balancing act, one that required the perfect mix of innovation and caution. Musk knew that the public was watching closely, and the slightest misstep could doom Tesla's vision. But he also knew that if they didn't push forward, someone else would. Later that evening, after a long day of negotiations, Musk took a walk outside the Tesla headquarters. The evening air was cool, and the city lights twinkled in the distance, casting a soft glow over the sprawling complex. It was a moment of solitude amidst the chaos. He needed it. Musk stopped at the edge of the parking lot, where the company's latest models sat silently. His eyes traced the lines of the cars, the sleek, aerodynamic designs that were supposed to represent the future. He could feel the weight of what was at stake, the expectations, the pressure, the burden of leading Tesla and, by extension, the entire autonomous vehicle movement. The road ahead wasn't just about building better cars, it was about convincing the world that this was the future they needed. In the distance, he could hear the sound of workers packing up for the night, but for a moment, everything seemed still. The hum of the world seemed distant, and all that mattered was the task at hand. He closed his eyes for a brief moment and allowed himself to imagine what the future could look like if Tesla succeeded. A world where transportation was cleaner, safer, and more efficient. A world where self-driving cars weren't just a novelty, but a way of life. He opened his eyes, his resolve hardening. The next day, Musk and his team were back in the conference room with the regulators. The mood had shifted. There was a sense of urgency in the air as they prepared to present their latest proposal. The engineers had worked late into the night, tweaking the software, improving the algorithms, and incorporating additional safeguards without sacrificing performance. Musk could feel the tension building in his chest as he waited for the regulators to arrive. When they finally sat down, the lead regulatory officer, a woman named Claire Peterson, wasted no time. "Mr. Musk," she began, her voice sharp but measured, "we've reviewed your latest proposal, and while we acknowledge the improvements, we still have concerns. These concerns aren't just about Tesla's cars, but about the broader implications of autonomous driving technology. If we allow Tesla to push forward with this, what kind of precedent are we setting? We have to ensure that every self-driving car on the road meets strict standards, and I'm not convinced that Tesla is ready for that." Musk's response was immediate, his voice firm. "I understand your concerns, Claire. But what you need to understand is that Tesla is committed to leading this charge responsibly. We're not just about making cars. We're about making the future safer, cleaner, and more efficient. We are fully prepared to work with you to make sure that we meet and exceed your standards. But we can't afford to wait. If we don't move forward now, we risk losing years of progress." There was a silence as Claire Peterson and the other regulators exchanged looks. Musk could feel the weight of their judgment. It was as if he was standing on the edge of a cliff, with the entire future of Tesla and autonomous driving technology hanging in the balance. Finally, Claire spoke again. "We'll need more data. More tests. And we need your commitment to a timeline. We need to know that Tesla will prioritize safety above all else." Musk nodded. "We're committed to safety. We've already implemented new testing protocols, and we're willing to do more. But we need your partnership in this, not just oversight. We can't do this alone." It was a gamble, but it was the only card Musk had left to play. If the regulators weren't willing to compromise, then everything could fall apart. There was another long pause, and Musk could feel the tension in the room. But then, to his surprise, Claire Peterson's expression softened slightly. "All right, Mr. Musk," she said, her tone slightly more conciliatory. "We'll take your proposal into consideration. But I'm telling you now, this is not a green light. There are still many hurdles to overcome." Musk leaned forward, his heart racing. "We're ready. We'll work with you every step of the way." As the meeting ended, Musk stepped out into the hallway, his team following closely behind him. The weight of the conversation had left him exhausted, but there was a flicker of hope. The regulators hadn't shut them down entirely. They were willing to work with Tesla. And that, in Musk's mind, was a victory. Later that night, he found himself back in his office, staring out at the city lights. The road ahead was still uncertain, but for the first time in a long while, it felt like they were moving in the right direction. The days following the meeting with the regulators felt like a blur to Elon Musk. It was a race against time. Every new day brought a new challenge, technical hurdles, legal battles, and mounting public pressure. The stakes had never been higher. Yet amidst the growing tension, Musk found himself strangely calm. He had been here before, navigating through uncharted waters, defying the odds. And this time, he wasn't alone. As Tesla continued to refine its proposal, Musk's legal team worked around the clock, liaising with the regulators, drafting new safety protocols, and preparing for the next round of negotiations. However, it wasn't just the lawyers and engineers who were helping to push things forward. Musk had found an unexpected ally in the form of Claire Peterson, the lead regulatory officer who had initially been the most skeptical of Tesla's plans. It had started with a simple phone call, one that Musk hadn't anticipated. "Mr. Musk," Claire's voice came through on the other end of the line, clear and decisive, "I wanted to touch base. I've been reviewing some of Tesla's latest developments, and I think there's a way we can find common ground. Musk was surprised. He had expected Claire to continue with her hardline stance, but instead, she sounded genuinely open to conversation. "I'm listening," he replied, leaning forward in his chair. "Look, I'm not saying we can wave a magic wand and approve everything overnight," she said. "But I do think Tesla is closer than people realize to creating a solution that balances safety with innovation. I think we can work together, but we need to start thinking bigger. The world is watching, and we need to show them that self-driving cars can be both revolutionary and responsible." Musk couldn't help but smile. It was rare to hear a regulator speak so pragmatically, especially one who had been so critical just weeks ago. "I agree," Musk replied. "But we need you on our side. The regulators need to understand that this isn't just a business, it's a movement. We need to get ahead of the curve, or we risk falling behind." From that moment, Musk and Claire began to exchange more frequent messages and calls. They shared their concerns, ideas, and frustrations. Claire's insights into the regulatory environment proved invaluable, and Musk's relentless drive to push the boundaries of what was possible became an inspiration for her to advocate for change within her own department. They both understood that the future was fragile, it was a delicate balance of technological progress and public safety, and it was their job to navigate it. One evening, Musk received a message from Claire that surprised him. "Elon, I have an idea. What if we brought in a group of independent experts to assess Tesla's progress, unbiased? We could create a new kind of framework, one that ensures the technology is both safe and scalable. If we do this right, we could set a global standard for autonomous vehicles." Musk felt a spark of excitement. The idea had merit. By bringing in third-party experts, Tesla could demonstrate not just its commitment to safety but also its transparency in addressing the concerns of both regulators and the public. It was a bold move, but Musk had never been afraid of bold moves. "I like it. Let's make it happen," Musk texted back, already thinking about who would be the best fit for the expert panel. As Musk and Claire worked together behind the scenes, the rest of the world continued to watch. The media buzzed with headlines about Tesla's ongoing battle with the regulators, casting shadows of doubt and fueling controversy. The courtroom was still looming large in the background, and with each passing day, the pressure increased. But Musk felt oddly confident. For the first time, he wasn't in this fight alone. He had Claire's support, and that could make all the difference. The expert panel came together quickly. Leading engineers from other companies, renowned scientists, and ethicists who specialized in AI were brought in. They were tasked with reviewing Tesla's technology and offering their independent evaluations. Musk knew that the opinions of these experts would be crucial in persuading both regulators and the public that Tesla's vision wasn't just a dream, it was a reality that was ready to be realized. A few weeks later, the panel of experts had completed their assessment. The results were mixed, but there was a clear message that came through: Tesla's technology was far more advanced than many had given it credit for, and while there were still improvements to be made, the safety features Tesla had implemented were ahead of their time. More importantly, the experts believed that the company's commitment to continuous improvement was genuine. On the day the report was published, Musk stood before the press, flanked by Claire Peterson and several key members of his team. The media frenzy was intense, with flashing cameras and reporters shouting questions. But Musk's demeanor was calm, and Claire stood by his side, her support unwavering. "Elon," one reporter shouted, "how do you respond to the skeptics who still say Tesla is rushing this technology and putting lives at risk?" Musk took a deep breath and looked toward Claire. Then, he addressed the crowd. "What we're doing here is unprecedented. We are creating a future that is safer, more efficient, and more sustainable. We've made mistakes, and we've learned from them. But we're not stopping. The future of transportation is autonomous, and Tesla is leading the way. We are committed to the highest safety standards, and this expert panel is proof of that." Claire stepped forward, her voice cutting through the noise. This report shows that Tesla is willing to listen, to learn, and to adapt. We, as regulators, are committed to ensuring that the technology is safe for all. But we also recognize that innovation requires collaboration. We're not here to stifle progress. We're here to guide it. The press conference ended with mixed reactions, but Musk knew they had made an important stride forward. The independent report, Claire's backing, and the increasing momentum from the public were moving the needle in their favor. Tesla wasn't just another company, it was becoming the driving force behind an entire revolution in transportation. As Musk returned to his office later that evening, he sat in silence for a few moments. The world had changed dramatically in a short amount of time, and yet, there was still so much left to do. The courtroom battles were far from over, and the road to regulatory approval remained long and uncertain. But with Claire's support, the expert panel's validation, and Tesla's relentless drive, Musk believed the future was within reach. He glanced out the window, seeing the lights of the city below. It felt like a pivotal moment, one that might mark the beginning of a new era. But for now, there was still work to be done. The days after the press conference passed in a blur. Musk could feel the momentum building, but he also knew that it wasn't going to be easy. The regulators had begun to take Tesla seriously, but there were still obstacles to overcome. There was still doubt, still hesitation in the air. But every day, he and his team pushed forward, determined to prove that they were capable of navigating this complex web of safety, innovation, and regulation. Tesla had spent months preparing for this moment, the moment when they could convince the world that self-driving technology wasn't just a dream. The expert panel's report had been a critical step, but now they had to make it count. Every detail of the report was scrutinized by regulators, industry leaders, and the media. Tesla was no longer just a company making cars. It was an industry standard setter, a symbol of what the future of transportation could look like. Yet, the road ahead was not without its hurdles. The court case was still looming. The pressure from the legal front remained high. Every time they thought they had won victory, another challenge appeared. But Musk wasn't about to back down. He knew that the success of Tesla, of autonomous driving, was not just about technological advancement. It was about changing the way the world thought about transportation itself. One day, Musk walked into the Tesla headquarters, the familiar hum of activity greeting him as he entered. There was a sense of urgency in the air today. His legal team had been preparing for a critical meeting with the regulators that afternoon. The final steps were being taken to solidify Tesla's position in the market. Musk knew this was it, the moment when everything could fall into place. As he sat down with his team, the conversation turned quickly to the meeting ahead. The legal documents were prepared, the reports were ready, and the supporting data had been compiled. Everything was in place. But the question remained, would it be enough? "I'm feeling confident about the independent report," Claire Peterson said, speaking directly to Musk. "I think it's been a game changer. But the real test will be in this meeting. The regulators will want concrete assurances from you, timelines, safety improvements, and proof that Tesla can scale safely without cutting corners." Musk nodded, his fingers tapping rhythmically on the table. He knew the stakes. He had been through high-pressure situations before, but this felt different. Tesla wasn't just fighting for approval. They were fighting for the future. If they couldn't convince the regulators to move forward, it could derail everything. "We've already demonstrated that we're willing to make improvements. The expert panel report shows we're on the right path," Musk said, his voice calm but firm. "But we can't stop here. We need a framework for scaling, for expanding production, and for ensuring every new model that leaves the factory is safer than the last." Claire gave him a knowing look. "That's exactly what they're waiting for, Elon. The commitment to continuous improvement is what will win them over. We need to show them that we're not just a car company, we're a movement. A movement toward safer, smarter, more sustainable transportation." Musk's eyes gleamed with determination. "We've already shown them that. We just need to prove that we can do it at scale." The world is ready for change. They just need to see that we're ready to lead it. The afternoon meeting was held in a large conference room, filled with Tesla executives, legal representatives, and, of course, the regulators. The tension in the room was palpable. Musk sat at the head of the table, Claire by his side, his legal team and engineers surrounding him. The air was thick with anticipation. This was the moment they had all been working toward. But it wasn't just about the report, or the tests, or even the data. It was about trust. Trust in Tesla's ability to deliver on its promises, and trust that the company could create a safer future for all. As the regulators filed in and took their seats, Musk knew that this was the defining moment. He had come a long way from the brash entrepreneur who first launched Tesla with nothing but a dream. Now, he was a seasoned leader, confident, but still driven by the same fire that had fueled him from the beginning. Claire spoke first, addressing the regulators with a calm authority. "We are here today not just to present new data, but to show you that Tesla is committed to a future of autonomous driving that is safe, responsible, and scalable. The expert panel's report reflects the work that has been done to enhance Tesla's safety protocols and demonstrate that we are not just meeting regulatory standards, we are setting them." Musk took over. "We understand the responsibility we have. This is a new frontier, and it's not without risk. But we believe that the benefits far outweigh the challenges. Self-driving cars will save lives. They will reduce emissions. They will change the way the world thinks about transportation." The regulators were silent, listening intently, as Musk continued, outlining the new safety features that had been incorporated into the Tesla models, detailing the data from the independent panel, and explaining the long-term plans for the company's growth. After an hour of intense discussions, Claire spoke up again. "We understand the gravity of this decision. But what we need to hear now, Elon, is your commitment to ensuring that these improvements are implemented consistently, across all models, and at scale." Musk's response was swift and decisive. "We are committed to this vision. And we will not rest until it is realized. Every new model will be equipped with the latest safety advancements, and we will continue to improve with each iteration. Tesla is ready to lead the world into a new era of transportation." The room fell silent for a long moment. Then, slowly, Claire Peterson nodded. "I think we're ready to move forward. But we will need periodic reviews to ensure that Tesla is keeping up with its commitments. The world will be watching. We'll be watching." The meeting ended with a sense of cautious optimism. Musk knew that this wasn't the end of the road, it was just another step forward. The regulators had agreed to a conditional approval, but they were still going to monitor Tesla closely. It wasn't a victory yet, but it felt like one. Tesla had made it through one of its toughest challenges, and now the future seemed a little bit brighter. As Musk left the meeting, he found himself smiling. The road to redemption was long, but they were on the right path. Tesla had earned a seat at the table. And with Claire's support, they might just have a chance to change the world. Later that evening, Musk sat alone in his office, looking out over the city. The lights below flickered like stars, a reminder of how far he had come, and how far he still had to go. But one thing was clear, Tesla was no longer just a company fighting for approval. It was a company fighting for the future. And that, Musk thought, was a fight worth winning. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough? The days after the meeting with the regulators were a whirlwind of emotions and logistical hurdles. Musk's victory, though hard-earned, was only a brief respite before the next storm. Despite the promising approval, there was still work to be done. The company had to meet the conditions set by the regulators, a task that would require every ounce of Tesla's resources and ingenuity. Musk, however, had always thrived in high-pressure situations. It was what made him the man he was, relentless, driven, and able to see opportunities where others saw only obstacles. Still, there was a certain weight to the approval, one that seemed to settle heavily on his shoulders. The regulators were watching, and the entire world was waiting for Tesla to deliver. As Musk sat at his desk one quiet morning, the familiar buzz of his phone broke the silence. It was a message from Claire Peterson. He had grown to trust her insight over the past several weeks, especially as she had become more of an ally than a regulator in the traditional sense. "Elon, we need to talk. Something's come up. It's important." Without hesitation, Musk dialed her number, his mind already racing through the possible scenarios. Had something gone wrong? Were there new objections to the proposal? His fingers tapped nervously on the desk as he waited for Claire to pick up. "Elon," Claire's voice sounded strained, more serious than usual. "I need to be upfront with you. There's a faction within the regulatory body that isn't happy with how things are moving forward. They're concerned about the speed at which Tesla is progressing. They're questioning if the proper safety procedures are being followed, especially as it relates to the latest software updates." Musk took a deep breath. He had expected this to some extent. The pace at which Tesla had been moving was always bound to raise concerns. But he wasn't about to back down now. "How serious are we talking, Claire?" he asked, trying to keep his voice steady. "It's not just a procedural issue anymore. There's growing political pressure. Some of the more conservative members of the board are suggesting a full review, which could delay things for months. It could even put the entire project on hold." Musk stood up, his heart racing. A full review? That would set them back indefinitely. Tesla couldn't afford another delay, not after everything they had been through. "What can we do?" Musk's voice was calm, but there was an underlying urgency to it. "I'm working on this from my end. But we need to gather more concrete evidence that Tesla's autonomous driving systems are safe and that we have a solid plan for scaling," Claire responded. "It's not enough to simply show that we've improved. We need to prove that we've anticipated every possible outcome. I suggest we bring in outside experts again, but this time, we need a new set of eyes, ones that can give us a fresh perspective on what we've been doing." Musk thought for a moment. He knew that bringing in third-party experts again would make a significant impact. Transparency was key, and if Tesla could show that they were willing to take extra steps to ensure safety, it would help quell some of the doubts. "All right, let's do it. But we need to move quickly. I don't have the luxury of waiting for months. Set it up, Claire. Bring in the best." Over the next several days, Musk and Claire worked tirelessly to organize the review. They pulled in a team of renowned experts from around the world, leading researchers in artificial intelligence, autonomous driving, and safety. Musk knew that if Tesla was going to survive this storm, they had to come out stronger on the other side. The team would assess every aspect of Tesla's self-driving system, from hardware to software, to ensure that no stone was left unturned. Meanwhile, the media frenzy surrounding Tesla only intensified. Every headline seemed to ask the same question: is Tesla's self-driving technology truly safe? Critics were quick to point out every potential flaw in Tesla's system, fueling public skepticism. But Musk was undeterred. He had seen this before. People doubted him when he launched the Model S, the Gigafactory, and the launch of SpaceX's Falcon rockets. And time again, he had proven them wrong. This was no different. As the expert panel convened, the tension reached a boiling point. Musk had spent countless hours with them, addressing their concerns, showing them the data, and walking them through Tesla's rigorous testing processes. By the end of the week, the experts were set to present their findings. The night before the presentation, Musk sat alone in his office, reflecting on everything that had led to this moment. The battle with regulators had taken its toll, both physically and emotionally. But he couldn't afford to let up now. Not when the future of Tesla, of autonomous driving, was on the line. The next morning, Musk entered the conference room with Claire and the rest of the team. The atmosphere was heavy, the experts' eyes fixed on their work. One by one, they presented their findings. Some were positive, while others highlighted areas for improvement. It was a mixed bag, nothing groundbreaking, but nothing disastrous either. The panel's final verdict, however, was what mattered most. The system is safer than many realize, one of the experts said, his voice cutting through the tension. While there are still areas that require ongoing work, Tesla has done more than most in the industry to ensure its technology is secure. Their proactive approach to addressing potential risks is commendable. If anything, they're pushing the envelope in ways that others aren't. The relief that washed over Musk was palpable. They had passed the test. The panel had given Tesla the stamp of approval. But it was far from over. Musk knew that the real challenge lay ahead, convincing the regulators that Tesla was ready to scale, ready to take the next big step. As the days passed, the political pressure continued to build. More members of the regulatory body began to voice their concerns, but Musk remained resolute. He knew that he couldn't let fear dictate the future of Tesla. The world was on the precipice of change, and Tesla had the power to lead that change. In the final meeting with the regulators, the room was charged with anticipation. Claire stood beside Musk, her presence a steadying force. As the panel discussed the final conditions for approval, Musk knew this was it, the moment that would define Tesla's future. And this time, he was ready to face whatever came next. The night before the final hearing with the regulators, Musk couldn't sleep. His mind was racing through the potential outcomes, imagining every scenario, both the good and the bad. Every major decision Tesla had made in the last decade had led to this moment, this fragile, nerve-wracking moment where everything could either come together or fall apart. He was sitting in his office, staring out at the quiet city below, a quiet reflection before the storm. Claire Peterson had been by his side throughout the journey, offering both practical advice and emotional support. Her steadfastness had become a crucial part of Tesla's success, and Musk had come to rely on her in ways that went beyond the professional. "We're so close, Elon," Claire had said earlier that day, before the team retreated to prepare for the hearing. "But I can see it in your eyes. You're carrying this company on your back. I know it's been hard. But you've never backed down, and now's not the time to start." Her words echoed in his mind as he leaned back in his chair. He could feel the weight of every decision, every failure, and every victory building up on him. The world was watching, and Tesla was on the verge of changing everything. If they succeeded, they would reshape the future of transportation. If they failed, Musk didn't allow himself to entertain the thought. He stood up abruptly, walking over to the window and gazing at the stars above. SpaceX had its own set of challenges, launch delays, budget constraints, even near-catastrophic failures. But Tesla was different. It was a reflection of his vision for a sustainable future, a solution to climate change, and, ultimately, the key to revolutionizing transportation. This wasn't just about cars. It was about leaving a legacy. The next morning, the room was filled with tension as Musk, Claire, and the rest of the Tesla team entered the regulatory hearing. The panel was already assembled, their expressions unreadable. Musk could sense the skepticism in the air. They'd seen the data, they'd heard the reports, but now they needed to hear Musk's personal commitment to the vision, to prove that Tesla wasn't just another company trying to cash in on a buzzword. Musk stood before them, feeling every eye on him. The burden of this moment seemed to heighten his sense of purpose. This was not just about Tesla. It was about proving to the world that technology could be a force for good, and that it was possible to embrace the future without compromising on safety or integrity. "I know you've all heard the arguments, seen the data, and reviewed the reports," Musk began, his voice calm but firm. "But I'm here today to tell you that this is bigger than any report. This is about the future of transportation and how we, as a society, can create a safer, more sustainable world." The regulators sat in silence, waiting for him to continue. Musk took a deep breath before pressing forward. "We've been working on this for years. Every test, every update, every software change has been a step toward a single goal, making autonomous vehicles not just a reality, but a better alternative to what exists today. We've listened to every criticism, every concern, and we've used it to make our technology stronger. But I want to make one thing clear, our commitment to safety, to responsibility, and to the future is unwavering." The words hung in the air, heavy with intent. He could see some of the regulators' skepticism faltering as he spoke. This wasn't just a CEO in front of them, this was a man with a vision, a mission, and the relentless drive to see it through. Claire gave him a subtle nod of encouragement, and Musk turned to the screen behind him, where Tesla's new safety protocols and software features were now being displayed. The data was irrefutable. Tesla had come further than any other company in ensuring the safety of autonomous vehicles. The system was capable of reacting to any number of potential threats, reducing the risk of accidents, and adapting to new environments in real time. But as the discussion continued, Musk could feel the underlying tension creeping back in. The regulators were still cautious. They needed more than assurances, they needed hard evidence that Tesla could scale safely, and that Tesla's ambitious plans were not too aggressive for their own good. That's when the tension reached its peak. One of the senior regulators, a woman with sharp eyes and a stern expression, spoke up. "Elon, we all understand your vision, but there's a matter of practicality. We have concerns about the pace at which Tesla is moving. There are still numerous unanswered questions about the scalability of your technology. What makes you so confident that this is the right path, not just for Tesla, but for the entire industry?" Musk met her gaze, his eyes unwavering. He had anticipated this question. It was the crux of the argument, and now it was time to lay it all out. "We've always believed that change doesn't happen by waiting," he said. "The world needs these innovations now, not tomorrow, not 5 years from now. Every day we wait is another day we stay dependent on outdated systems that aren't sustainable, that aren't safe, and that won't get us where we need to go. Our technology is scalable. The real question is, can the world afford to wait?" He let that sink in for a moment, and then continued, "We've built a roadmap to take this technology from where it is today to a fully autonomous fleet on the roads, in the air, and beyond. And we are committed to getting it right. This won't be perfect, and it won't be easy, but every step of the way, we're learning, adapting, and improving." The room fell into a heavy silence. Musk felt like the weight of the world was on his shoulders, but he didn't flinch. His words had struck a chord, and now all they could do was wait for the response. After a tense pause, the head of the regulatory panel spoke again. "We hear your passion, Elon, and we acknowledge the progress you've made. This technology is moving faster than anything we've seen before. But we must be sure that Tesla can handle the scaling process without compromising safety or ethics." Musk nodded, understanding the stakes. "We'll do whatever it takes. If there's one thing I've learned, it's that nothing worth doing is ever easy. Tesla will take the necessary steps. We'll remain transparent, we'll ensure our technology is up to the highest standards, and we will not stop until we have proven this vision is not only possible, but necessary." The regulators exchanged looks, murmuring among themselves. Musk held his breath, knowing that the decision would come soon. A few minutes felt like hours before the head of the panel spoke once more. "Given your commitment to safety, your company's progress, and the independent reviews that have been conducted, we are prepared to approve the next phase of Tesla's autonomous driving initiative. However, as you stated, it won't be easy. You will be closely monitored as you scale, and additional oversight will be required. But if you continue on this path, we believe Tesla can set the standard for the future." The room erupted in murmurs, but Musk stood still, processing the words. The storm had passed. Tesla had made it. But it was just the beginning. The true journey was about to start. As Musk walked out of the room, the tension in his shoulders finally began to ease. The world was watching, and Tesla had passed the ultimate test. He couldn't help but feel a sense of accomplishment, but he knew that the real work had only just begun. Turning to Claire, he said, "Let's get back to work. We've got a future to build." After the hearing, the air inside Tesla's headquarters buzzed with excitement. The weight of the regulatory approval had lifted, but now came the hard part, the real work of implementing everything Musk had promised. As Musk returned to his office, he felt a strange mix of relief and anticipation. They had cleared the first major hurdle, but what came next would determine whether Tesla could truly fulfill its grand vision. "Okay, team. We've got the green light," Musk began, addressing a room full of Tesla's top executives, engineers, and project leads. "But this is where the real challenge begins. We've got the resources, the technology, and the data. Now we need to build, test, and scale faster than ever before. We've already shown we can push the limits of what's possible, but now we need to prove we can do it at scale." The team listened intently, taking in his words. There was no doubt that the stakes had just been raised. Musk had already set the bar high, and they all knew that anything less than success wasn't an option. "We're not just building a car," Musk continued. "We're building a system that will change the way the world moves. A world where cars drive themselves. A world where we eliminate accidents, reduce pollution, and make travel faster and safer. This isn't just about Tesla, this is about changing the entire transportation industry." The room was quiet as everyone absorbed the enormity of what Musk was saying. It wasn't just a corporate meeting, it was a rallying cry, a vision for a new future. And everyone in that room was now responsible for bringing that vision to life. Over the next several weeks, Tesla entered the most critical phase of the project. They worked tirelessly to refine the autonomous driving system, implementing the feedback from the experts they'd consulted, addressing every potential weakness, and testing every conceivable scenario. Engineers were working around the clock, making adjustments to both hardware and software. Each day brought new challenges, but also new breakthroughs. Claire Peterson remained a steady ally throughout the process, coordinating with regulatory bodies, ensuring that Tesla stayed on track with its commitments, and helping to smooth over any remaining concerns from the regulatory panel. The weight of her support made the burden Musk carried feel a little less heavy, but it was still a long road ahead. One particular afternoon, Musk received an unexpected call. It was from Jeff Bezos. "Elon, I heard the news," Bezos said, his tone surprisingly warm. "Congratulations on the approval. That's a huge win for you and Tesla." Musk had always admired Bezos, he knew the Amazon founder's tenacity and vision. But today, Bezos's voice carried a different tone. "I'll be honest, though," Bezos continued, "I think you and I both know that the real work starts now. You've got the regulators off your back, but scaling this technology? It's going to be a battle. It's not just about getting the cars on the road, it's about proving to the world that this is something people can trust, day in and day out." Musk paused, taking in the weight of Bezos's words. It was true, Bezos was right. The approval was just the beginning. Now, Tesla had to prove that its system wasn't just a prototype, but a practical, scalable solution. "I know it's going to be tough," Musk finally responded. "But we've got the right team, the right technology, and the right vision. If anyone can do it, it's us." Bezos chuckled. "I'll be watching, Elon. You've got this." A few days later, Tesla took its biggest step yet. The company launched its first public trial of fully autonomous vehicles in select cities. The announcement was met with mixed reactions, as expected. While many heralded it as a groundbreaking achievement, others remained skeptical. Critics questioned whether Tesla's system could handle the complexity of real-world traffic. Would the cars make safe decisions in unpredictable environments? Could they navigate through busy urban centers without human intervention? Musk and his team were ready. They had spent countless hours testing the vehicles, running simulations, and fine-tuning the system. But nothing could fully prepare them for the real-world challenges of autonomous driving at scale. It was one thing to test in controlled environments, it was another to roll out on streets filled with pedestrians, cyclists, and other vehicles. Tesla had a fleet of self-driving cars ready to go, and the first trial cities, San Francisco, Los Angeles, and Austin, were selected as test grounds. The press, tech analysts, and curious onlookers were all eager to see what would happen. On the first day of the public trial, Musk stood on a rooftop overlooking the bustling streets of San Francisco. His heart raced as the first Tesla Model S, outfitted with the latest autonomous software, rolled down the road without anyone behind the wheel. As the car made its way through the city streets, navigating traffic with impressive precision, Musk watched with a sense of awe. This was it, the culmination of years of hard work. Tesla's technology wasn't just on display, it was making history. But then something unexpected happened. The car, cruising down a busy intersection, hesitated. Its sensors detected an obstacle up ahead, a pedestrian crossing the street in front of it. For a brief moment, the vehicle seemed to stall. The crowd of onlookers gasped as the car came to a complete stop. A few seconds later, the car slowly accelerated forward, avoiding the pedestrian and continuing its path. The moment had the potential to be both a triumph and a test. The car had made a decision based on its programming, one that prioritized safety over speed. But the hesitation, however brief, was enough to raise questions. Was the system too cautious? Would passengers be comfortable with that level of hesitation in the future? Musk watched the car continue on its way, his mind racing through the possibilities. This was the moment of truth. The technology worked, but public perception was something else entirely. He had always known that Tesla's journey was not just about technical success, it was about winning the trust of the people. As the car drove off into the distance, Musk felt a deep sense of pride. There would be questions, there would be doubters, and there would be obstacles ahead. But one thing was certain, Tesla had just taken its first step into a new era. In the days that followed, the media exploded with both praise and skepticism. The headlines ranged from Tesla's self-driving cars, the future is now, to Tesla's big risk, will fully autonomous cars ever be safe enough? Musk knew the road ahead would be challenging. But he had never been one to shy away from a challenge. In fact, he thrived on it. And now, more than ever, he believed that the future of transportation was within reach. Tesla had come a long way. But they were just getting started. The following weeks were a whirlwind of emotions. While Tesla's public trials had been groundbreaking, the response from the public and regulators wasn't as smooth as Musk had hoped. The press seemed divided, some celebrated Tesla's innovation, while others criticized the hesitation the autonomous vehicles had shown during the trial. Musk knew that the world was watching, and the next step was critical. It wasn't just about refining the technology, it was about proving to the world that Tesla's autonomous vehicles were not just an experiment, they were ready for real-world use. Every glitch, every hesitation in the system, would be magnified under the spotlight. But Musk wasn't worried about the technology. It was the trust factor that weighed heavily on his mind. Could the public, regulators, and investors trust that these cars were safe? Could they trust that Tesla wouldn't cut corners in their relentless drive for innovation? The answer, Musk knew, lay in transparency. Tesla made the decision to hold a public demonstration, live-streamed across all media channels. The goal was clear, show the world that the cars could handle real-world conditions without hesitation. Tesla would put its cars through a rigorous, high-pressure test to demonstrate that the self-driving technology could safely navigate through one of the most unpredictable environments, downtown New York City. The location was no accident. Musk wanted the challenge to be immense. He needed to prove that Tesla could handle everything from unpredictable pedestrians to erratic drivers to street vendors pushing carts across busy intersections. If the cars could handle Manhattan's chaotic streets, they could handle anything. As the day of the demonstration approached, Musk's nerves were on edge. He knew this was a pivotal moment, a turning point that could either solidify Tesla's position as the leader in autonomous driving or shatter public confidence. The demonstration was set to begin early in the morning, before the bulk of New York's infamous traffic could swamp the streets. But that didn't mean there wouldn't be challenges. There were always challenges in New York. Musk arrived at the Tesla facility an hour before the event. He was joined by Claire Peterson, his right-hand executive, and several engineers who would oversee the demonstration. The team had been preparing for this day for months, running simulations, testing hardware, and ensuring the latest software updates were flawless. "Everything looks good on the diagnostics," one of the engineers told Musk, his voice tense but confident. "Good," Musk replied, nodding. "Let's make sure it stays that way." Claire, always pragmatic, glanced at Musk. "We've done everything we can. All we need now is for it to work." Musk didn't answer right away. Instead, he stepped to the window of the control room, staring out at the city skyline. It felt like the weight of the world was on his shoulders. Tesla wasn't just fighting for its place in the market, they were fighting for the future of transportation itself. At precisely 9 a.m., the first Tesla Model 3 rolled onto the streets of New York. The car's sleek exterior gleamed in the early morning light as it made its way through the streets. People started gathering along the sidewalks, smartphones in hand, ready to record history. Musk and his team watched anxiously from their control room, monitoring every detail. The car's cameras and sensors scanned the surroundings, adjusting to the rapidly changing environment of Manhattan. Musk could see it on the live feed, cars weaving in and out of lanes, pedestrians stepping onto the crosswalks at the last second, cyclists swerving unpredictably. For the first few minutes, the car moved cautiously, as if sensing the chaos around it. It slowed at each intersection, scanning for pedestrians, bikers, and other potential hazards. The control room stayed quiet, the only sound being the steady beeping of the monitoring system. Then, a few blocks into the demonstration, the unexpected happened. A delivery truck, unmarked and moving at an irregular pace, pulled out from an alleyway without signaling. It was an unpredictable move, one that the car's sensors had to process in an instant. The car hesitated. It came to a stop, inches from the truck, as its algorithms worked to calculate the safest response. The crowd watching the demonstration gasped, unsure of what would happen next. Musk's heart skipped a beat. This was the moment. The car needed to react in the perfect way. And then, it did. With precision, the car veered to the right, smoothly avoiding the truck. It continued on its path, seamlessly weaving through traffic, never losing its composure. The crowd erupted in applause. Musk's breath, which he hadn't realized he was holding, finally escaped. It wasn't just that the car had avoided the truck. It was the way it had handled the situation, calmly, intelligently, and without hesitation. This was the kind of driving Musk had always envisioned for Tesla, a car that wasn't just a machine, but an intelligent, thoughtful system capable of making split-second decisions. The rest of the demonstration went off without a hitch. The car navigated through New York's toughest challenges, joggers suddenly darting across the street, cyclists swerving between lanes, a yellow cab cutting in front without warning. Each time, the car made the right decision. Every time, it demonstrated the sophistication of Tesla's autonomous system. By the time the demonstration ended, the streets were filled with people cheering and applauding. Even the media, who had been skeptical up until this point, couldn't hide their admiration. It was a breakthrough. The car had handled the chaos of New York with ease, proving that Tesla wasn't just talking about the future, it was living it. Musk exhaled deeply, a sense of relief washing over him. This wasn't just a victory for Tesla. This was a victory for the future of transportation. The autonomous revolution had just begun, and Tesla was leading the charge. That evening, as Musk and his team gathered for a debriefing, Claire broke the silence. "Well, that was something else. I think we've made our case, Elon. This is it. We've done it." Musk nodded, though his mind was already moving ahead to the next challenge. "We've done it, but it's just one step. We've got more work to do, but today was huge." "You're right," Claire said, smiling. "But today was a game changer." Musk glanced out the window, seeing the stars beginning to appear in the New York sky. The road ahead would still be filled with challenges, but for the first time in a long while, he felt confident that Tesla was on the right path. The revolution wasn't just coming. It was already here. After the success of the New York demonstration, the media buzzed with excitement, and Tesla's stock price surged to new heights. But for Musk, the public accolades were a brief distraction. He was already looking ahead to the next phase of Tesla's vision, the scaling of fully autonomous vehicles across the globe. He knew the road ahead would be long and fraught with challenges, but the momentum was now in Tesla's favor. Tesla's leadership team gathered in the company's war room, where maps of cities across the world were pinned up, along with data about traffic patterns, infrastructure, and regulatory challenges. The room hummed with energy as each department discussed the next steps. "We've proven the technology works," Musk began, addressing the room. "Now, we need to take the next step, scaling it. This means ensuring every Tesla on the road can drive autonomously, and not just in New York or San Francisco but across all the major cities in the US and eventually globally." Claire Peterson, standing at the front of the room, looked at the projections on the screen. "Elon, we need to start focusing on regulatory approval in other countries. We're talking about the EU, China, India, places where infrastructure is very different, and the legal systems are more complex. This is going to take more than just building cars." Musk nodded. "I'm aware. But we have to keep the pedal to the metal. We can't slow down. Every other company out there is chasing us, and we can't afford to give them any advantage. We're not just making cars, we're making the future. Let's make sure we're the ones defining that future." In the following months, Tesla began to ramp up its efforts. They had already started manufacturing new models equipped with the latest autonomous driving software, but they needed to test the vehicles in diverse environments. To Musk, the key was not just having a perfect product but ensuring it could work in a range of real-world situations. Tesla expanded its testing grounds to cities like London, Shanghai, and Berlin, where the team faced unique challenges. In China, for example, there was the added complexity of dealing with the country's dense population and crowded streets. In Europe, the roads were narrower and often poorly maintained compared to the highways in the US. In every city, Tesla faced new hurdles, but the core of Musk's leadership was evident. He remained unyielding in his commitment to perfection. The systems were continually updated with each new data point, and the AI behind Tesla's vehicles continued to improve. Every roadblock only made the product stronger. One evening, during a late-night video conference with the global Tesla team, Musk turned his focus to a particularly difficult challenge: regulatory approval in the European Union. "It's not just about the tech anymore," Musk said, his voice steady. "It's about relationships. We need to make sure the European regulators understand what we're doing here. We need to show them that this isn't just some Silicon Valley experiment, it's the future of transportation." Claire Peterson, who had been working tirelessly with the European regulators, leaned forward. "Elon, we've made great strides. The EU is starting to come around. But we need something big, a demonstration that will show them we're not just another tech company. We're a global force with the capability to change the way people live." Musk thought for a moment, then grinned. "Let's show them. Let's bring a car to the streets of Brussels and have it navigate the busiest intersection during rush hour, without human intervention. If we can pull that off, we'll have the world's attention." The plan was set in motion. Tesla engineers, working closely with regulatory officials, prepared the car for a live demonstration in one of the most congested parts of Brussels. The streets were a maze of narrow lanes, busy pedestrians, and a constant flow of vehicles. It was an ideal test for the technology. If Tesla's system could perform here, it could perform anywhere. The day of the demonstration arrived, and Musk stood in front of the car, watching as the engineers made their final adjustments. The streets of Brussels were packed with onlookers, local media, and EU officials. The car was ready, its sensors and AI primed to navigate the labyrinth of the city without human intervention. Musk glanced at Claire, who was watching him carefully. "Let's make history." As the car began its journey through the heart of Brussels, the crowd fell silent. It was a tense moment. Musk knew that even a small mistake could derail their progress, both in the EU and globally. The Tesla car, with its sleek body and futuristic design, slowly edged its way into the intersection. The engineers monitored the data, but Musk was focused on the car's movements. At first, the car was cautious, moving slowly through the tight streets. The AI scanned the surroundings, adjusting to the erratic movements of other vehicles and pedestrians. Musk's heart beat faster as the car neared the busiest part of the intersection. Cars were honking, pedestrians were darting across the road, and cyclists weaved in and out of lanes. But Tesla's autonomous system didn't falter. The car glided forward, its sensors adjusting to every obstacle, every moving object in its path. It made precise decisions, slowing when it needed to, speeding up when the way was clear. The crowd gasped in awe, watching as the car passed through the chaos without a single human hand on the wheel. As the car completed its route and arrived safely at the other side, the crowd erupted in applause. Musk stood still, his heart racing, but his face calm. He had known it would work, but seeing it firsthand, in the chaos of Brussels, was still a moment of triumph. That night, after the demonstration, Musk found himself alone in his office, staring out at the city lights. The future was starting to feel tangible. The world was finally beginning to understand what Tesla had been working toward all along. It wasn't just about the cars, it was about a vision. A vision of a world where people could travel safely, efficiently, and without the need for a human driver. But as always, Musk wasn't content to rest on his laurels. There was still work to be done. There were still obstacles to overcome. And there were still people out there who doubted him and his company. I've always been about the impossible, Musk thought to himself. And I won't stop until it's not just possible, but inevitable. As the months passed, Tesla continued to break barriers. The company expanded its autonomous driving fleet, began receiving approval in additional markets, and further improved the AI systems. Musk's vision was becoming clearer, and closer to reality. But he knew there was still so much left to do. For Tesla, the road ahead was long, but for Musk, it was always the next challenge that kept him moving forward. As Tesla's autonomous vehicles began making waves across Europe and the US, the next frontier in Musk's mind wasn't just about autonomous driving, it was about making Tesla the catalyst for a revolution in how humans interacted with technology, energy, and the world at large. He envisioned a seamless, interconnected world where self-driving vehicles worked alongside energy solutions to create a sustainable future for all. But while his vision grew, so did the complexities. Tesla was no longer just a car company, it was now a global powerhouse with diverse interests ranging from electric cars to energy storage solutions, solar power, and even space exploration. The pressure was beginning to mount, and Musk knew that even the slightest mistake could have catastrophic consequences. He spent more time than ever at Tesla's headquarters, often working late into the night, making decisions that would shape the future. One evening, after a particularly long meeting, Musk found himself alone in his office, looking out over the city. His thoughts were interrupted when his phone rang. It was Claire Peterson. "Elon, we need to talk," she said, her tone tense. Musk sat up, sensing the gravity of her voice. "What's going on?" "I've been in talks with some of the major investors, and, there's a concern," Claire began. "Tesla's been doing incredibly well, but we're at a crossroads. There are talks of expansion into new markets, places like India, Brazil, and Africa, but we need to figure out how we're going to handle production and supply chain issues. We're already stretched thin with our current facilities." Musk leaned back in his chair, steepling his fingers. He had anticipated some pushback on scaling, but hearing it from Claire was different. She didn't worry easily. "I know we're pushing it. But we can't afford to slow down, Claire. We're at a critical moment. If we hesitate now, someone else will beat us to it." "I get that," she said. "But the question is, do we keep going full speed ahead, or do we pause and make sure we can handle the growth sustainably? We've already stretched our resources thin, and investors are beginning to ask the tough questions." Musk let out a long breath, his mind racing through the possibilities. This was the moment he had been dreading, the inevitable intersection where ambition collided with reality. The decisions he made now could either propel Tesla forward or cause the company to stumble. He knew that scaling Tesla globally would require significant investment, not just in cars but in infrastructure, factories, research and development, supply chains, and partnerships with local governments. Every new market was a gamble. The world was watching Tesla, and any misstep could damage their reputation, turning the tide of public opinion against them. But Musk wasn't one to back down from a challenge. He had already faced setbacks with SpaceX and Tesla, but his determination had always been his driving force. This was no different. Tesla needed to take the next step, but it needed to be done right. "Let's take a different approach," Musk finally said, his voice calm but decisive. "We'll increase our presence in India and Brazil, but we'll scale it slowly, carefully. I'll speak to the investors and reassure them that we're not jumping in blindly. And we'll invest heavily in R&D to make sure our production lines are ready for this kind of global scale. We can't afford any mistakes." Claire sighed in relief. "Okay. That sounds like a plan. I'll start organizing meetings with the investors and work on the production schedules." Musk nodded, knowing that he couldn't take his foot off the gas, but also realizing that the stakes had never been higher. Weeks later, Musk found himself in the bustling city of Mumbai, India, standing at the podium in front of a room full of investors, engineers, and government officials. The air was thick with anticipation. This was the next big step in Tesla's journey, the expansion into one of the largest automotive markets in the world. The energy in the room was electric, and Musk could feel the weight of the moment pressing down on him. This wasn't just a business move. This was about reshaping how the world thought about transportation, energy, and the future. India had long been a country with a rapidly growing middle class, but it was also home to an infrastructure that was desperately in need of modernization. Tesla's entry into the Indian market had the potential to change everything. But with that potential came immense challenges. Musk cleared his throat and stepped forward to address the room. His words were calm, measured, yet filled with the unmistakable energy that had made him one of the most influential figures in the world. "We are standing at the threshold of a new era," he began, his voice projecting across the room. "Tesla is here not just to sell cars, but to help build a better future. A future where clean energy drives progress, where self-driving cars change the way people live, and where every innovation moves us closer to a world we can be proud of." He paused, letting the weight of his words sink in. "I understand that India is a unique challenge," Musk continued. "The infrastructure is different from what we're used to. But that's not a barrier. It's an opportunity. An opportunity to create something groundbreaking, something that can solve India's unique challenges in transportation and energy. Together, we can make this happen." The room was quiet, the attendees hanging on his every word. Musk could see the glimmer of hope in their eyes. This wasn't just a sales pitch. This was a promise, a commitment to change the world, no matter the obstacles in their way. The next several months were a whirlwind. Tesla began building new factories in India and Brazil, making strategic partnerships with local governments, and working on infrastructure projects that would enable Tesla's vehicles to thrive in these new markets. It wasn't easy, there were countless hurdles along the way. From navigating bureaucratic red tape to establishing supply chains in foreign countries, every step was a delicate balancing act. But as Musk watched the first Teslas roll off the production lines in India, he knew that Tesla was on the verge of something bigger than he had ever imagined. The scale of the challenge was immense, but the potential for success was even greater. As Tesla expanded globally, the stakes continued to rise. With each new market came new obstacles, new challenges, and new opportunities. But Musk had built a reputation as someone who didn't just think outside the box, he built a new box altogether. The future of Tesla was still unfolding, and Musk knew that the road ahead would be filled with even more tough decisions. But one thing was certain, Tesla wasn't just driving into the future, it was shaping it. Despite all of Tesla's progress, Musk knew that success brought its own set of challenges. As the company expanded, he found himself facing obstacles that were both unexpected and overwhelming. It was no longer just about making better cars or expanding into new markets, it was about maintaining the company's core values while dealing with pressures from all sides. The first major crisis hit in the form of a data breach. It started with an unassuming phone call on a Wednesday morning. Musk had been up late, as usual, reviewing projections for the upcoming quarter when his phone rang. The voice on the other end was Claire Peterson, sounding more urgent than usual. "Elon, we have a problem," she began, her tone sharp and frantic. "It's a major one. There's been a data breach, someone has gotten access to the vehicle data feeds. We're talking about customer data, private driving histories, locations, everything." Musk felt a chill run down his spine. Tesla had been a target of hackers before, but this breach was different. It wasn't just a security issue, it was a reputational one. Tesla had built its reputation on trust, on the belief that its technology was safe and reliable. If word got out that personal data was being compromised, it could cripple the company. "Is it contained?" Musk asked, his voice already taking on the calm, decisive tone that would drive the next steps. "We don't know yet. The breach happened over the weekend, but we didn't discover it until now. It's going to be hard to contain, this could be bigger than we initially thought. We're working with the cybersecurity team, but I need your decision on how we proceed." Musk knew there was no time to waste. He immediately called a meeting with the company's top executives and the cybersecurity team, convening a crisis management session to address the situation. The room was tense, everyone speaking at once, brainstorming how best to handle the breach. Musk's mind raced as he processed the information. This wasn't just about fixing a problem, it was about controlling the narrative. Tesla had to act fast, but it also needed to maintain its transparency with customers. "We're going to be as open as possible about this," Musk said, cutting through the chaos. "We'll issue a public statement acknowledging the breach. People need to know that we're taking action. And we need to offer affected customers a way to mitigate the damage, whether it's enhanced security protocols or direct support." Claire nodded. "I agree. But we'll need a thorough investigation. We can't risk a second breach like this happening again." Musk turned to the head of cybersecurity. "Do we have a timeline for a full security audit?" "Within 48 hours, we'll have a clearer picture," the cybersecurity lead replied. "But it's going to take time to root out the full extent of the breach. Right now, we're working on tightening access and securing the data." Musk sighed, leaning back in his chair. This was a blow, no question. But it was also an opportunity for Tesla to show the world its integrity, to demonstrate that even in times of crisis, the company would act with honesty and transparency. Over the next few days, Tesla went into full crisis mode. Musk spent hours drafting the public statement, ensuring that every word reflected the company's commitment to security and customer trust. The company also started working with law enforcement to trace the hackers, suspecting that it might be a coordinated attack aimed at exploiting vulnerabilities in the rapidly growing autonomous vehicle sector. The media coverage was relentless. Headlines such as, "Tesla hit by major data breach, what's next for the future of autonomous vehicles," were plastered across the news, and the social media buzz quickly spiraled into panic. Some customers were worried, others were furious, and a few even began publicly denouncing the company. But Musk was resolute. He knew that handling this crisis with transparency, swift action, and clear communication was key to regaining trust. Tesla issued a public apology within 24 hours, explaining the breach, what had been done to address it, and what steps were being taken to prevent it in the future. They offered customers free monitoring for the next 6 months and ensured that every Tesla owner would receive a personal email with instructions on how to secure their vehicles and data. Despite the media frenzy, Musk's decision to tackle the crisis head-on was the right one. Slowly, the negative media coverage began to subside as Tesla's response gained traction. By the time the 48-hour audit was completed, the company had fixed many of the vulnerabilities, and no further unauthorized access had been detected. The hackers were still at large, but Musk knew it was only a matter of time before they were found. But while the immediate crisis seemed to be under control, Musk could not shake the feeling of vulnerability. He'd always known that the road ahead would be difficult, but this breach had shown him just how fragile the company's standing could be. Tesla had relied on its cutting-edge technology and ambitious goals to carry it forward, but the breach was a stark reminder that technology, no matter how advanced, was always vulnerable to external forces. Musk called another meeting with the leadership team. This time, it was about the future. We need to re-examine how we handle data security, not just for our vehicles but for all our products, Musk said, his tone serious. We need to stay ahead of the curve. Every time we innovate, we expose ourselves to more risks. We can't let our guard down again. Claire nodded. Agreed. We need to ensure that Tesla not only leads in innovation but in cybersecurity too. We've been too focused on scaling and expansion. Now, we have to invest heavily in securing our systems. The meeting was a turning point for Tesla. Musk had always prided himself on innovation, but he now realized that security needed to be just as much of a priority. Every new breakthrough would come with new risks, and it was time for Tesla to think not just about the next product, but about protecting the data and systems that made it all possible. In the weeks that followed, Musk pushed for a renewed focus on security within Tesla. The company brought in top-tier cybersecurity experts to fortify their defenses, and they implemented new protocols to prevent future breaches. The crisis had shaken Musk, but it had also reinforced his belief in the importance of resilience. Tesla's journey had always been about pushing boundaries, and this was no different. Through this crisis, Musk learned a valuable lesson: the price of progress was not just measured in dollars or products, but in the responsibility to ensure that the technology he was creating didn't just transform the world, but did so safely and securely. As the world watched, Tesla took a step forward in its mission to revolutionize the future. But this time, Musk knew that the road ahead would require not only innovation, but vigilance and foresight. As Tesla recovered from the data breach and began to rebuild its reputation, Musk found himself in a constant battle to balance the demands of investors, the press, and the growing complexity of managing a global company. The breach had shown him the fragility of success, but it also illuminated a more fundamental truth: Tesla was no longer just a car company, it was a symbol of a new era, and that era was under constant scrutiny. The next challenge came from a source Musk had hoped to avoid: the board of directors and key investors. It began with a phone call from his longtime investor, Gregory Allen, a seasoned venture capitalist who had been with Tesla from the early days. Gregory had always been a voice of reason, but this time, there was an urgency in his voice that Musk hadn't expected. "Elon, we need to talk," Gregory said, sounding uncharacteristically serious. "We've been looking over the numbers, and frankly, I'm concerned. The breach, the delayed deliveries in certain markets, the increasing production costs, Tesla's growth is being outpaced by its expenses. The investors are getting restless." Musk frowned, rubbing his forehead. "Gregory, I get it. But Tesla's not just a car company. We're working on revolutionizing industries, energy, transportation, space. We're playing the long game here." "I know, Elon. But the long game doesn't keep the lights on. And right now, we're at a crossroads. There's talk of bringing in new management to help streamline operations, reduce costs, and focus on profitability. It might be time for a more traditional approach." Musk's heart raced. The idea of restructuring Tesla with a more traditional management style was anathema to everything he had built. He had always surrounded himself with like-minded visionaries, people who were willing to take risks, break boundaries, and embrace the future. A traditional approach meant playing it safe, something Musk had never been willing to do. "I'm not making any changes to the core of Tesla," Musk said, his voice steady but firm. "We've taken risks before, and it's those risks that got us here. I'm not backing down now." Gregory paused for a moment. "Elon, this isn't about backing down. It's about sustainability. Investors want to see a return, and they're growing impatient with the growing costs and risks. We can't just be a vision anymore. We need to prove that Tesla can thrive in the long run. Musk knew Gregory was right. Investors wanted results, not just promises. But the thought of conforming to a traditional, cautious approach was a bitter pill to swallow. He wouldn't, compromise on Tesla's mission. "I'll figure it out," Musk said, cutting the conversation short. "But we're not compromising on our vision. I'll handle it." As he hung up, Musk felt the weight of the decision that lay ahead. He had built Tesla from the ground up, and while his dreams of a sustainable, innovative future had propelled the company to unimaginable heights, now he was faced with the reality that Tesla's long-term survival depended on appeasing the very people who had supported its growth. The next day, Musk called a meeting with his leadership team. The atmosphere in the room was tense as the executives sat down, awaiting his next move. Musk had always been an optimist, but today he could sense the mounting pressure. The team knew that there was more at stake now than ever before. "We've reached a point where we need to make some tough decisions," Musk began, his voice steady, though the undercurrent of stress was palpable. "The investors are pushing for a more traditional approach, cost-cutting, streamlining, and focusing more on short-term profitability. But that's not who we are. And that's not why we've come this far." He paused, looking around the room, meeting each of their eyes. "We're not just building electric cars. We're building a sustainable future. We're changing the world. But we also need to show that we can do this sustainably, not just in terms of our energy goals, but in our financials too. So, here's what we're going to do." Musk laid out a plan that balanced his visionary goals with practical steps to address the concerns of investors. He proposed a new, streamlined product lineup that would allow Tesla to focus on its most profitable models, without compromising on quality or innovation. At the same time, he called for increased investment in the company's most cutting-edge projects, like self-driving technology and space exploration. "We're going to double down on what makes us unique," Musk said. "We'll continue to innovate, but we'll also be more strategic with our investments. We're not going to slow down, but we will be smarter about where we allocate our resources." The room was silent for a moment before Claire Peterson, the company's chief financial officer, spoke up. "Elon, this might work in the short term, but we need to look at the bigger picture. We can't ignore the elephant in the room. Tesla has never been profitable on a consistent basis. We've survived by burning cash at an unprecedented rate. The question is, can we sustain that? If investors see another quarter of losses, we'll lose their confidence. We'll lose everything we've built." Musk's expression darkened. He knew Claire was right, but he couldn't let go of his vision. The thought of compromising Tesla's future for short-term gains made his stomach churn. He had always believed in the long-term impact of his projects, and this was no different. "We will make it work," Musk said, his voice resolute. "We can't back down now. Not after everything we've built. I will personally handle discussions with the investors and explain why we need to focus on the future, not just next quarter." In the weeks that followed, Musk threw himself into negotiations with Tesla's investors. Every conversation, every meeting was a battle. He made his case, he spoke of the long-term vision, the need for continuous innovation, and the unparalleled potential Tesla had to reshape entire industries. He fought for every dollar, every vote of confidence. Slowly but surely, Musk was able to convince a majority of the board and key investors to back his approach. The compromise wasn't easy, but it was necessary. Tesla would continue to push the envelope, but with more oversight and strategic financial discipline. The company wasn't out of the woods yet, but the outcome of those tense negotiations marked a turning point. Tesla was going to be forced to adapt, both in how it operated and how it communicated with the world. But Elon Musk was still at the helm, and the vision he had for the future was stronger than ever. After surviving the storm of the investor crisis, Musk realized that Tesla was at a pivotal point in its journey. The company had proven its ability to weather major setbacks and had emerged more resilient, but now it was time for Tesla to shift gears. It had to innovate in a way that would not only address its financial concerns but also reinforce its position as a leader in the electric vehicle and renewable energy sectors. The innovation gambit was Musk's next big play. The first step was to announce the development of a new product that could revolutionize the automotive industry once again. A concept that had been on the back burner for years, a fully autonomous, self-driving car that could drive itself to anywhere, at any time, without requiring human interaction. While Tesla's autopilot had made waves in the past, this new vehicle would go beyond mere assistance. It would be an entirely self-reliant car. Musk called a meeting with his top engineers and designers to start the groundwork for what would be a flagship model for Tesla. It was risky, yes. But it was also exactly what Tesla needed to prove that it wasn't just a car manufacturer, it was an innovation machine. "We're not just making a car," Musk began during the first meeting. "We're making the future of transportation. This vehicle will redefine autonomy. It'll be safer, more efficient, and more intuitive than anything on the road. The technology we're building today is not for tomorrow. It's for the next decade." He could see the enthusiasm in the room. There was a sense of excitement that came with working on something as groundbreaking as this. But the stakes were high. The team had already faced pressure from investors, and they couldn't afford to fail. As the weeks went by, the engineers faced countless challenges. Building a car that could drive itself without human intervention meant solving problems that had never been addressed in the automotive industry before. The car needed to understand its environment in real time, every road, every obstacle, every weather condition. It had to be smarter than any vehicle on the market, capable of responding to changes in traffic patterns, roadwork, and unforeseen circumstances. But with each problem, Musk's team pushed forward. They had the resources, the intellect, and the determination to see it through. And under Musk's direction, they were driven by more than just the prospect of financial success. They were driven by the idea that they were building something that could transform lives. By the time the first prototype of the fully autonomous vehicle was ready, Tesla had already announced plans for a massive rollout of its new tech, something that had never been seen before in the industry. The car would be equipped with advanced artificial intelligence that could not only drive but learn and adapt based on a user's preferences and driving history. The unveiling of the prototype came on a cool, crisp day in October. The Tesla headquarters in California was abuzz with excitement as Musk prepared to take the stage at an invite-only event. The world's media had been waiting for months, speculating about what Tesla's next big thing would be. The lights dimmed, and Musk walked on stage to a roaring applause. The world was ready for the next chapter. "Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you, the Tesla 2030, Musk said, stepping aside to reveal the sleek, futuristic vehicle that sat quietly on the stage. The crowd gasped in amazement. The Tesla 2030 was unlike any car they had ever seen. It was smooth, streamlined, and almost otherworldly. But it was the interior that truly blew everyone away. There were no steering wheels, no pedals, nothing to indicate that the vehicle even needed a driver. Instead, the car was fully equipped with a 360-degree touchscreen interface, complete with artificial intelligence that could speak to the driver, anticipate needs, and even make suggestions about routes based on the user's habits. "This is it," Musk continued, his voice calm but charged with energy. "The future of mobility. The Tesla 2030 is not just a car. It's an experience. It's a vehicle that doesn't require you to drive it. It drives itself. You're free to do what you want during your commute, and the car will get you where you need to go, safely, efficiently, and without hassle." The room was electric. The media was abuzz with the groundbreaking announcement, and within minutes, social media was flooded with reactions from fans, critics, and investors alike. The tech world had been watching closely, and Tesla had just changed the game. But the unveiling was only the beginning. The true test would come when the car hit the streets. Tesla had set ambitious timelines, and now they had to prove that their technology was ready for mass production. Musk didn't mince words. "We're going to take this car to every corner of the globe," he declared. We're going to show the world that autonomy isn't just a luxury, it's the future of driving. In the months that followed, Tesla faced numerous challenges in bringing the 2030 to market. There were technical glitches to resolve, regulatory hurdles to clear, and fierce competition to contend with. But Musk was used to facing down challenges, and he knew that the road to success was never a straight line. One of the biggest hurdles Tesla encountered came from the regulatory bodies. While many countries had begun to embrace the idea of autonomous vehicles, there were still many that had not. In some regions, there were fears over the safety of self-driving cars, especially after a few high-profile accidents involving semi-autonomous vehicles from other manufacturers. Musk and his team had to work closely with lawmakers to ensure that the Tesla 2030 would meet stringent safety standards and gain approval for public use. Through tireless lobbying and expert demonstrations, Tesla proved that the car was not only safe but superior to any other vehicle on the road. The AI that powered the car had been tested in countless scenarios, from heavy rain to dense urban traffic, and it had performed flawlessly. Still, convincing regulators was a monumental task, but Musk was determined to succeed. In the midst of all this, Tesla's stock continued to rise. Despite the bumps in the road, the unveiling of the Tesla 2030 proved to be a game-changer for the company. Investors who had once questioned Musk's unrelenting focus on innovation began to see the potential rewards. The promise of a fully autonomous future was too big to ignore, and many investors jumped back on board, eager to reap the benefits of Tesla's latest gamble. Musk's boldness had paid off. Tesla was once again leading the charge into uncharted territory, and the world was watching. With the Tesla 2030 in the spotlight, it was clear that Musk wasn't just a visionary, he was a master of strategy. With the release of the Tesla 2030 and its overwhelming success in securing its place in the autonomous vehicle revolution, Musk had reached a new milestone. Tesla's growth was undeniable, and the world now saw the company as not just a car manufacturer, but a leading force in the evolution of transportation. The once impossible dream of a self-driving future had become a reality, and Musk had once again proven that his vision wasn't limited by conventional thinking. However, with all the triumphs came a new set of challenges. The world had changed rapidly, and Tesla was at the forefront of that change, but so was the competition. Companies from all over the world were catching up, and what was once Musk's playground of unchallenged innovation was now a battleground for dominance. The board of directors, eager to ensure that Tesla's success continued, had pushed Musk to pivot again, this time, to focus not just on vehicles, but on integrating Tesla's technology into every facet of human life. The next frontier was obvious, integrating AI with everything from homes to businesses, expanding Tesla's vision of creating a fully sustainable, self-sufficient world. The ambition was immense, perhaps even too immense, but Musk had never been one to shy away from lofty goals. In an emergency meeting with his leadership team, Musk addressed the next step for Tesla. "We've revolutionized transportation," he began, standing in front of a giant screen showing projections for the future of renewable energy, self-driving technology, and even space exploration. "But it's time for the next leap. We're going to do for homes what we did for cars. It's time to make every building, every city, autonomous, sustainable, and connected." There was a palpable sense of excitement in the room, but also an underlying tension. They had done the impossible once before, but now, Musk was asking for something even more ambitious. "We've got the tech. We've got the team. Now, it's about applying everything we've learned and making it accessible. We're going to build smart homes, smart offices, smart everything," Musk continued. "Tesla will create a fully integrated system where the energy you use is completely renewable, where your home is intelligent enough to manage itself, and where we can help create self-sustaining communities." As he laid out the blueprint for the future, Musk's words were bold, inspiring, and laden with the same risk and vision that had carried him through all of Tesla's previous challenges. But this was a different kind of risk, a broader ambition that would stretch the limits of what Tesla could achieve. For the first time, the weight of the task ahead felt overwhelming, even for Musk. Despite the massive scale of the new venture, there was a sense of unity within Tesla's team. Musk's leadership had always been a mix of relentless drive and contagious enthusiasm, and it was clear that they were all ready for the challenge. However, as they began to move forward with the new project, the reality of the enormity of the task began to set in. The tech world wasn't the only place watching Tesla closely, so were regulators, competitors, and government agencies. Musk knew that the expansion into home and community integration would face an entirely new set of obstacles, many of which were political in nature. Governments around the world had always been wary of corporations that gained too much power, and the prospect of Tesla becoming an all-encompassing force, controlling everything from personal vehicles to energy consumption, was likely to face fierce resistance. Yet Musk couldn't help but push forward. He had always believed that the world needed bold, visionary leaders who would make tough decisions for the greater good, even if it meant battling against the current. His message was clear: Tesla wasn't just building cars, it was building the future. As Tesla began developing its vision for integrated communities, it launched a pilot program that combined electric vehicles, solar energy, and smart home technology into one seamless experience. The program, known as the Tesla Neighborhood, was designed to showcase the benefits of living in a fully sustainable, autonomous environment. The neighborhood was a marvel of modern technology. Every home was powered by solar panels, with energy storage systems that ensured the community could function independently of the grid. The roads were lined with charging stations for the Tesla vehicles, and each house was equipped with the latest smart home technology, allowing residents to control everything from their heating and cooling systems to their daily energy usage, all via an intuitive AI interface. However, the rollout of the Tesla Neighborhood was met with skepticism from some quarters. Critics argued that the project was an attempt to monopolize an entire segment of society, turning residents into mere consumers of Tesla's technology rather than individuals with freedom of choice. The government, too, was watching closely, questioning whether Tesla's ambitions were going too far. But Musk didn't let the criticism deter him. He was used to skepticism, even hostility. He knew that history would not remember the doubters. History would remember those who pushed the envelope and shaped the future. Despite the doubts, the Tesla Neighborhood began to grow in popularity. Residents praised the sustainability of their homes and the convenience of having everything managed by Tesla's autonomous systems. The community was energy efficient, self-sustaining, and cutting-edge. Tesla was no longer just about electric cars, it was about creating a new way of living. It was about ensuring that people had access to the best technology, not just for transportation, but for every aspect of their lives. As Tesla expanded its reach, the final phase of Musk's plan unfolded: space. In the years since he founded SpaceX, Musk had been clear about his goal of making humanity a multiplanetary species. Tesla's advancements in energy storage and technology had opened up new possibilities for SpaceX as well. In a moment of quiet reflection, Musk realized that the two companies were no longer separate, they were a unified force pushing for the future of humanity itself. One evening, as Musk sat in his office, looking out over the Tesla campus, he realized something. He had built more than just a company. He had built a legacy. Tesla and SpaceX were no longer just names, they were movements, shaping the future for generations to come. And the greatest realization hit him: his mission was never just about profits or even technology. It was about creating a world where human beings could thrive in harmony with the planet, and eventually, beyond it. His companies, though they started in different industries, had always shared the same underlying purpose: to ensure that humanity could continue to grow, explore, and evolve. As the sun set over the horizon, Musk looked at the city of the future he had helped create. A city powered by solar energy, driven by autonomous technology, and sustained by a renewable ecosystem. It was everything he had dreamed of, and yet he knew that the true journey was just beginning. Tesla was a part of something bigger, a movement that would extend far beyond his own lifetime. In the end, it wasn't the cars or the rockets that would define his legacy. It was the courage to take risks, the vision to look beyond what was possible, and the unwavering belief that humanity could, and would, change the world. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough?